It is 10 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. There is medical news this morning around the potential number one overall pick, edge rusher Abdul Carter out of Penn State. Multiple reports stating Carter has a stress reaction in his right foot, and he was facing the possibility of surgery after Wednesday's testing in Indy, but doctors have advised Carter against surgery, and he is expected to work out at Penn State's Pro Day March 28th. According to Adam Schefter, Carter will not be on the field today as workouts officially begin at Lucas Oil Stadium with defensive linemen and outside linebackers. College hoops action last night. Vanderbilt picked up a huge win for their NCAA tournament resume at number 12 Texas A&M, 86-84. Commodores improved to 19-9. Tyler Nickel going a career high 7 of 10 from 3. He had 21 points. And the Belmont Bruins picked up their 20th win of the season over Missouri State, 74-65. That marks 15 straight 20-win seasons for Belmont. Gonzaga and Oregon are the only other programs on the same streak. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone. Good morning. Welcome back. Another day of NFL Combine coverage from Indianapolis. 1 foot in Nashville, 1 foot in Indy. That's how this show is handling it this week. I'm Lucas Panzica. Jackson Williams is on the other side of the glass. Buck and Kirby are in Indianapolis. We are, of course, fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken, the best hot chicken in the world. So here's how today is going to work. Bit of a roller coaster. We've got news on a potential number one overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft that we will get to here in just a second. Another potential number one pick is speaking with the media in Indy as we speak. Travis Hunter is having his press conference as defensive backs meet with the media today. So Buck is there, and he will join us in the upcoming segment to react to what we heard from Travis Hunter. I'm especially interested, of course, as I imagine most people are, to hear what Travis Hunter's opinion is on what position he should be starting out with in the NFL. If he had to pick one, and that will assuredly be a question that he gets asked, that he, I'm sure, has already been asked multiple times by NFL teams. If there is one position that you will start out, if you had your pick, what would it be? We've heard varying opinions from different head coaches, different general managers. We will play you Brian Callahan's opinion of that coming up in a few moments. But first, there has been a bit of a roller coaster since we got off the air yesterday surrounding one of the best players in this draft, maybe the best overall player in this draft, one of the Titans' options at number one overall, and that is, of course, Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter. So, Ian Rappaport at 10:43 p.m. yesterday tweeted, tests at the NFL Combine revealed that potential number one pick and Penn State star Abdul Carter has a stress reaction in his right foot, and he may have surgery. Option one would be to have the preemptive surgery, have a screw inserted in his foot, and be back in 8 weeks, according to his agent, Drew Rosenhaus. And then at 8:09 this morning, both Ian Rappaport and Adam Schefter all over this, but we'll read you the Schefter tweet. Doctors told Penn State defensive end and projected number one pick Abdul Carter that after further scans on his right foot, surgery is not advisable. Carter will work out at his March 28th Pro Day at Penn State. The quote from agent Drew Rosenhaus is, I couldn't be more confident that this will be a non-factor when he's drafted. He will put on a show at his Pro Day. So, again, this is a product of the medical testing that Carter underwent yesterday in Indianapolis. And as we know, it's not the first medical news about the Penn State edge rusher this week. So to recap, we learned on Tuesday that Abdul Carter will not be working out with the rest of the defensive linemen and outside linebackers, who, by the way, hit the field today at Lucas Oil Stadium for the first round of workouts at the scouting combine, as Carter recovers from the shoulder injury that he suffered in the college football playoff, that I should note he played through in the CFP and played really well through in the CFP during Penn State's run to the semifinal. So that was the news that initially held Carter out of the workouts in Indy. And now there's this about his foot. So the question for you, and the question that coaches and general managers are asking themselves at the very top of this draft, does it give you any cause for concern about drafting Abdul Carter in the top 3? 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We are also, of course, live on 1045 The Zone TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch, where you can jump in. John Michael A. on the F&M Bank chat says, injured first-round draft pick. Have you met the Titans? Of course we will take him. I understand that was the case for John Robinson on a couple of different occasions. Obviously, the Jeffrey Simmons one worked. The Caleb Farley pick didn't. But this is a new regime. So I don't think we should apply maybe some habits, some tendencies of previous GMs in Titans history to Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan and the rest of the Titans brass. But they will be asking very fair questions about this throughout the course of the pre-draft process. Now, the development this morning was good news for Abdul Carter, for anybody that might want to draft Abdul Carter. So back to the question, does it give you any cause for concern about drafting him in the top 3? Well, let's hear from ESPN analyst Field Yates, who says no, it shouldn't. So there you go. For Field Yates, almost a non-issue. He didn't bat an eye. He says the Titans should draft Abdul Carter with the number 1 overall pick despite the injury. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. We'll go to the phones with Paul chiming in on the Penn State edge rusher. Hey, Paul.
Hey, I was just saying this. Every time us as the Titans take an injured player, it never works out for us. Now, I think the thing would be we have to make sure that he's full capable, that he can run, that he can hit those corners like we need him to, and give us a good draft. We need a good draft.
Thanks for the call. Thanks for the call, Paul. Well, it's not necessarily true that it never works out for the Titans. It obviously did with Jeffrey Simmons. Jeffrey Simmons would not have fallen to the Titans all the way to the bottom of the teens or top of the teens, however you want to put it, if he did not tear his ACL in the pre-draft process. Now, that got John Robinson into a cycle where he was taking swings on players with injury history, and Jeffrey Simmons is just about the only player that John Robinson spent a top 100 pick on that had some sort of injury history, significant injury history, that worked out for the Titans. But I get the wary approach from Titans fans. I do. But that's where the conversations from medical experts, the vetting that NFL teams will be doing this week comes into play. It is encouraging that Abdul Carter will be working out at his pro day. Again, this is a stress reaction, not a stress fracture. Abdul Carter does not have a broken foot. Is it something to monitor for him, especially down the road in his career? Yes, absolutely. But like Field Yates said, he's not worried about Abdul Carter's health today. He's worried about his health at the end of April. And to even push it past that point, we're worried about Abdul Carter's health in August. So if NFL teams feel good about the medicals when he is supposed to hit the field, I guess first for rookie minicamp in May and then in August and July for training camp, then I don't think Abdul Carter is going to take a big fall in this draft. If the news from last night had stuck and had carried over the idea that he could have to have preemptive surgery, I think that would have put a lot more hesitation in the minds of NFL teams as opposed to today when we're hearing doctors are telling him there's no need for surgery. He will be held out of the combine, which we already knew from the shoulder, and he will work out at his pro day. But certainly all things to take into account, and I understand the hesitation. So that's the latest on Abdul Carter. And then there's Travis Hunter, another non-quarterback being considered for the number 1 pick. He is meeting with the media in Indianapolis right now. And the clashing of public opinion has already begun on the Colorado Star, whether he will begin as a cornerback or as a wide receiver. Brian Callahan stated his opinion on Tuesday. And we will hear from the Titans head coach.
Yeah, that's very realistic. I think he's a unique player that there's not a whole lot of other players you could compare what he's done. There's not many guys that have played that many snaps on both sides of the ball. And you watch his tape and you see his ability to play both at a very high level. So, yeah, I think anybody that you talk to about him is going to say the same thing, that he's got the ability to play both. And that I think you're going to find out where he fits if you were to get him. But he's got a really unique ability to do a lot of different things.
Does having him do that, does that become a little bit of a challenge, managing, making sure that he...
Well, you got to start somewhere. I mean, you got to put your teeth in a position first, and then you see where you can add them in. So those are all conversations that we have as we work through the process on where a player like him. What do you do with a player like him, and where do you first start him, and where does he help you on all sides of the ball? So he can return punts. He can, he's got a really unique skill set that I don't think there's many players you can compare him to.
So where do you first start?
I would say you probably start him. He probably starts at corner, and then you find ways to interject him into the offense as he gets more comfortable. He plays more and more offensively. But I think his corner is probably his starting point, in my opinion. You might get varying opinions on that, but then I think he's got a real role as a receiver.
So there you go. Brian Callahan says you start him at corner, and you could get him a real role at receiver. And then you had Andrew Berry, the Browns GM, a couple days ago saying the opposite. He believes that Travis Hunter will start at wide receiver. Browns obviously have the number 2 overall pick. It is largely believed. We played the audio of Adam Schefter with ESPN Cleveland saying the thing he is most certain about in this draft is that the Browns will take a quarterback, whether that's at number 2 overall or whether they feel the need to trade up with the Titans to 1 to go get their guy. But we mentioned this the other day, and I was able to go back and look because I posed the question, has there ever been a cornerback selected with the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft? And the answer is no. There have been top 5 picks. There have been top 3 picks at the cornerback position, but never with the number 1 overall pick. We have seen offensive linemen drafted number 1 overall. We have obviously seen edge rushers drafted number 1 overall. And of course, the quarterback position, the most common selection at number 1 overall, but we have never seen a corner. Travis Hunter is not just any corner. We understand this. There is no comparison for Travis Hunter in terms of the impact he made at the college level. Even a Deion Sanders, right? Even a Champ Bailey did not play both sides of the ball to the extent that Travis Hunter did. So how much that value will come into play down the road in his career, because sure, you could mix in Travis Hunter on offense when he's on the field in training camp, but will you be mixing Travis Hunter in on offense as much in 2 to 3 years if he's picked up a couple injuries along the way, if he's established himself as an essential piece of your team at corner? These are questions that are impossible to answer right now, but they are risks that you have to consider in taking a cornerback that you believe can play receiver with the number 1 overall pick. All things to consider, and I am I'm very interested to hear what Travis Hunter had to say about that, and we will hear from Buck on that subject coming up next, live from Indianapolis on 104.5 The Zone.
Welcome back here live from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. Lucas and Jackson holding it down back in Nashville, kind enough to let me scurry on over to Travis Hunter's media availability. Kirby has been holding it down so far this morning, and I'm sure the news about Abdul Carter's unfortunate situation has been covered at length, though we will circle back around to that throughout the course of the day. 615-737-1045 is how you get there. The F&M Bank chat open for business. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Of course, our coverage up here in Indy made possible by the wonderful folks at Wholesale Supply. So I don't know if you have browsed the internet, Lucas, for some of what Travis Hunter had to say at the podium. The man has good media training. He kept it very short. I guess we'll have to, it's one of these things where I don't know if I'm ready for the age of every athlete having a podcast and then directing us to their podcast to go actually get their full commentary on the questions that we're asking them at podium sessions. But I fear that time is officially upon us and that I have to adapt or die.
I would agree with you. I mean, the most interesting question that I would want to hear Travis Hunter answer is, okay, yeah, but which one? Just one. Just say one, Travis. Just pick one of them. And I have to imagine that's part of the conversation with these teams, right? That there is some pressing, some countering from these teams about, okay, we understand you believe you can play, 100% of the snaps?
That's right.
At DB and at receiver?
That's right. He believes that he can do exactly the same thing that he did in college at the pro level.
But you have to imagine that there's a counter from these teams. Like, okay, that's great that you believe that, Travis, and that leading to the question of, if you have to start out at one. Like, what if a team says, what if the Titans were to say to Travis Hunter, listen, if we draft you, we believe you can help us at both, but we're going to start you out at one or the other. Yeah. Which one do you think you can make a bigger impact? He would have to have an answer, right?
Well, no. I mean, he kept saying that, okay, just put me where you want to put me, and I'll figure it out, and then I'll show you that I deserve opportunities on the other side of the ball when the time comes and you have an injury at corner or wide receiver, and you decide, all right, let's give the kid some run. I mean, he really was adamant about that, Lucas. He would not, if he does have an answer to that question, and if he has answered that question with teams, he was not going to give that to us. Now, what his reason or logic might have been, or what his team's reason or logic might have been for deferring that specific question, I don't know. I guess he's just trying not to overwhelmingly influence the process one way or the other, because, I mean, I guess the way that I would look at it is if he does come out and say, yes, wide receiver, or yes, corner is where I'm going to start first and foremost, like, does that impact how teams will view him in the draft process? Because that's really the only logic or reason that I could come up with in my head as to why he wouldn't give a definitive answer as to where he would most be comfortable starting first, if that makes any sense. Because his proposition, it's next to impossible, right?
Oh, yeah. At the NFL level. Like, it's just...
what he did in college is pretty impossible, so I guess let me not be so dismissive, but, I mean, it's a longer season. It's more football than he's ever played in his life. There are high-level athletes everywhere, all over the place, and he is going to... It's not even to me about just being at the same level as, I don't want to say comparable athletes, because, again, I've never seen a player like Travis Hunter. But the physical wear and tear, and I know, he's saying he does. It made me laugh because I think Josina Anderson was over there asking him, but what specifically do you do? Like, well, I'm trying to figure out what the key is to what allows you to be so durable, so sustainable. Is it track? Do you swim? All these different things. He goes, I just walk around all day. I do a little sauna, I do a little red light, I do a little cryo. I'm like, I do all those things, and I couldn't play 100 snaps in college football on both sides of the ball. What are you talking about? I mean, I get the guy is just made of what's the stuff that Wolverine's made out of? What's titanium? No, it's not titanium. It's something made up. It's some kind of
Jackson says vibranium.
Vibranium.
But what's the one? What's the Black Panther? What's the material in Wakanda?
I think it's also vibranium.
Is that also vibranium?
I think so. That's the thing that ties the whole Marvel universe together.
Okay.
I assume that Travis Hunter is just a superhero that way, and that's kind of the direction that we're going to take this thing. So,
Yes.
I mean,
Yes,
you
it
know,
is.
what?
Jackson says, you said what is the Wolverine one?
Adamantium is the Wolverine thing. Vibranium is the Black Panther thing.
I see.
Vibranium also allegedly is what Captain America's shield is made up of.
And
Okay,
let's discuss this in depth.
I would rather not. People are already looking at me sideways because I'm evoking Marvel references that I really don't know anything about other than I watched the one movie
Can we
one
hear,
time.
Jackson, can we hear from Travis Hunter before we move further with this? And I believe it's Jim Wyatt with the question.
I did some meetings at receiver, did some meetings at DB, so still up in the air. They say nobody has ever done it for real the way I do it, but I tell them that I'm just different. I'm a different person.
How important? Your top 5 corners in the game, no order.
I don't have a top 5.
How important for you to go number 1?
You said what?
How important is it for you to go
That's
number
super
1?
important. That was one of my dreams, go number 1 and be the best I can be.
Why can you play 100 plays a game on both sides of the ball? You can play both sides of the ball 10 plays on one side, full time on the other. Why at the NFL level do you think you can do both ways full time?
I mean, nobody have done it, but I feel like I'll put my body through a lot. I do a lot of treatment. People that get to see that part, what I do for my body to make sure I'm 100% each game, but I feel like I can do it because nobody have done it, and I know I can do it. I did it at college level, which the game is, we rarely get breaks, and there's a lot more breaks in the NFL.
Okay, I mean, far be it for me to question the man. He's saying, I know I can do it because I've done it. And I mean, I guess that's his entire life experience, right? Like, he knows he can do it because he's done it at every level that he's played at so far. And we're operating under the assumption that it's at some point the degree of difficulty is going to become so much that it doesn't mean that he can't be an excellent player and he can't be an excellent corner and he can't be an excellent wide receiver or whatever, but like the idea that he's going to do both and that he's hell-bent essentially on doing both. And he was deferential to a degree, Lucas. He said, yeah, I mean, I'm going to tell them I want to do both, and I'm going to, be fairly insistent upon wanting to do both. But ultimately, it's their decision, and it's not like he's going to make a stink if they choose to. What's the word I want to use? Pigeonhole him, for lack of a better term, in one position or another. At least that's not the vibe that I'm getting from him right now.
Does that make us haters? To hear him say, I want to play 100% of the snaps on both sides, and us be like, okay, but realistically.
But like seriously, I appreciate it. I mean, it makes us maybe not outright haters, but I would say I don't want to quite say dismissive because I'm not dismissive of him at all. I think he's phenomenal. I think he is so singular, which is what makes just all of this so much more difficult on us to figure out what the hell the Titans are going to do with the number 1 overall pick, because you got the Abdul Carter thing thrown in the middle of that. I was pulling in to Indianapolis from Bloomington last night at about 12:30 when Schefter dropped that, and Schefter doing his job as opposed to getting in shouting matches outside of the Starbucks at the JW.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Oh, I'm so looking forward to that. Just a bunch of high schoolers running around here. It kills me.
Well, yeah, the Abdul Carter situation is a lot less doom and gloom than maybe it appeared with the reporting last night, but it is definitely something to monitor moving forward. But to that point, with the injury stuff, over to Travis Hunter, who was remarkably available. It's not that he didn't deal with stuff at Colorado, but, on aggregate, it was incredibly healthy for what he was asked to do. But what does Coach Mack say? There's a 100% injury rate in the NFL.
Yep.
So my question is, I can't wait to watch Travis Hunter play football in the NFL, whoever he's playing for. But my question is, when he kind of picks up that first nagging injury, right? Like that first time he's got some hamstring tightness, or maybe it's a shoulder, right? Or a concussion.
Yeah.
Okay, where does that team pivot from there? Okay, Travis, look, we get it, man, but we need you over here. We need you locking up Justin Jefferson in this game. We're not going to play you at receiver. We just can't risk it, right? Like, that's my biggest question. Like, it's all great when he's on the practice field in his rookie year and when he's 100% healthy. But when that first injury comes along, where you go from there in that regard of him playing both sides will be an extremely key development for him.
Sure. And I guess I don't know him, obviously. I that's literally the first interaction that I've ever had in face-to-face. Well, I mean, I guess as close to face-to-face as those things come. I was up in front. Jimmy White, of course, prime position at the podium there. So as Jimmy, as close to face-to-face as those things get. So I don't know the person that Travis Hunter is, but everything that you hear about him is that he is, he wants to do, the reason that he wants to do everything is because he thinks that's the thing that is going to most help the team. And if you show him, hey, we appreciate that you have that attitude, that mentality, and that's the driving force beyond just your incredible athleticism and incredible durability as to how you're going to make yourself an asset, here's where it really matters most to the team. And I don't think it's necessarily, I think those conversations happen. I mean, I don't want to say every day with players to a degree, because this is obviously a very different situation, but to a lesser extent, as if players are asking you, hey, why are we doing this? Or what's the logic and reason behind that? It's incumbent upon the coaches, because the coaches will tell you, hey, if you have any questions, ask. And then if you ask too many questions, depending on who the coach is, they may give you a little lip and be a bit more dismissive of those questions and just be like, do what I say, right? The kind of control freak type of coaches. But for the most part, most coaches are prepared to have those explanations for the players because they understand that these are high-level intellect play. You don't get to the NFL if you can't be reasoned with, if you are not intellectually capable of handling the rigors of difficult coaching and the difficulties of the season and the difficulties of team dynamics and all these different things. So as long as you provide him an explanation why, there's nothing to say that Travis Hunter wouldn't be malleable to the situation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I just wish you could give him truth serum and just be like, but if you had to pick one.
I think they just did. I'm telling you, I think genuinely, if you gave him whatever truth serum, I think he would still tell you the exact same thing. Yeah. I think that's just who he is. And that's frustrating, I guess, from our standpoint, because we would like definitive answers, but he is giving us a definitive answer. No, you idiots, I can do both.
Yeah. And obviously the conversation 4 years from now is, do you pay him as a corner or do you pay him as a wide receiver?
Well, that is a different level of unprecedented.
Yes.
That's where teams are. That's where you'll start to see him pigeonholed.
Hunter's like both. I want to be the first. At that point, what will the best receivers in the NFL be making in 4 years? $40 million a year, right?
No. What are you talking about? They're about to make $40 million this year as soon as Jamar gets paid.
Maybe closer to 50. So Hunter's going to say, I want to be the first
55
ever $80 million average annual value player in the National Football League. I combine them.
I think this man is going to ask a team for $100 million a year whenever it's his time to get paid, depending how all of this stuff goes.
If he's played 100% of the snaps at both, you know what?
Screw
it.
Yeah. Pay him. That's what I'm with it. Because you haven't seen it happen doesn't mean that it can't, I suppose, but that is where the skepticism is born out of, because we've literally never seen it before. So that's where the questions are coming from, because it made me laugh. I was surrounded by a handful of Giants media, and obviously the New York media, famed for their level of persistence, let's say, and there was several follow-ups to the effect of questions that you're asking, and he, adamant the entire way through. No, I'm going to do this. Watch me.
Yeah, well, he was prepared, no question about that, and it's not terribly surprising. Interesting thought from Tennessee Titans Superman 47 on the F&M Bank chat.
Okay.
He says, Travis Hunter is like two players in one when he plays, but he has two positions that I'm trying to figure out the grammar on this. He is
that needs
two
to be
positions that need to be covered when he gets injured. A double-edged sword, he says.
Yeah, no, that's an interesting component as well. Okay, so say you go along with it. Say you play him 100% of the snaps at corner and 100% of the snaps at the receiver, and then when he goes down, you're missing a corner and a receiver. Now, again, he may not be the best at both of them, right? And he may still be able to play a good percentage of the snaps at both of them. He may not end up being who's the best receiver in football right now? I'd probably argue it's Jamar Chase.
I mean, he just won the Triple Crown.
Yeah, he's excellent, and it's not just recency bias. I think there's a couple of different things that make Jamar Chase so. And the top corner in the game right now, I think that's probably a different conversation to be had because it seems to vary year by year. Yeah. Sauce Gardner had a down year, but so, I mean, the Jets, I hardly blame Sauce Gardner for not having the kind of year. But you understand my point. Like, maybe he's not the best player at both positions at the NFL, but he can do both positions at the NFL level. You can have these conversations by degrees, but the fact that these conversations are even viable around this player is interesting unto itself. So I know, people will get tired of the, well, is he this or is he that, or what's he saying about this or what's he saying about that, and how do teams view him? And there will probably be some fatigue to it because people just want definitive answers at the end of the day. And like you're like most people, Lucas, when you say you just want to see this dude play football at the NFL level, as we all do, as teams do, certainly.
Yeah.
But I just enjoy the hypothetical of him. Like, just because it's something we've never seen, and that's a pretty rare thing.
Oh, it's fascinating
in the football world.
I mean, it's fascinating. Think about how interested we were in the Adoree Jackson pick, right? And that was outside of the top 15, right? What was that? 18th overall,
17 or 18.
And so we were so curious at how that was going to pan out here, and so this is that times a million. It feels like the level at which he did it in college football. So the extreme of the extremes would be, are you getting, right, like you said, Jamar Chase and Pat Surtain in one, right? Well, if that's the case, absolutely he's the number 1 overall pick. But that's not terribly likely. So, yeah, how this develops in the next few years is going to be one of the more fascinating narratives and storylines in the NFL. Do you think he had or will have the biggest crowd for any single player at a media availability this week, bigger than either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders?
If for no other reason than, did you see what they're doing with the two of them tomorrow?
No.
They're having them go at the same time.
Oh.
Like you know what? I may just have to run back the dumbest thing in sports this week, imaging at some point in time. Because, I know, can we please? Let's go. I'm pissed. You can't win anything because there's no winners in this particular situation, and this is typically a Wednesday segment, but that's what it is. The dumbest thing in sports this week is the NFL having Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders at podiums at the same exact time. And I get this is media bitching, and nobody cares. Oh, you're an entitled media person. The NFL doesn't have to cater to the media. No. It's not about that. It's about the fans. We are here to get information. We are here to get audio and video. We are here to get access for fan bases. You immediately split the thing in half. Literally, you split the thing in half. It's going to look like Moses parting the Red Sea tomorrow between these two podiums as these players go to speak at the exact same time when you know damn well that's stupid. I mean, you're doing your network a disservice if you're the NFL. Because the NFL Network wants to put those things on individually, and I know you can run them later, one live and one on delay, or what have you. But it is just so mind-numbingly stupid. And I know Kaharski reached out to the NFL about the Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders thing, about them going at the podium at the same time, and still they're dragging their feet on this. It's just such stupidity. It's such stupidity. It's going to drive me insane. Thankfully, A to Z has a couple of people here, so I'll be able to get both in some form or fashion. But, most people don't have the ability to do that. And again, it's on behalf of the fans. We are here to provide more information for people, not for our own self-serving purposes. It makes me insane. That's the dumbest thing in sports this week.
I vote for a double box on NFL Network.
Just have them talking at the same time.
Literally just over each other?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why not? I mean, just, that would honestly, that would be less stupid than what they're doing. That would make more sense to me.
Football Fred says, who cares, Buck? We will see it on social media. Yeah, this is just something that, everybody else can digest it entirely, and this is just something for the people there. But I understand the frustration. Who are you going to pick?
I mean, probably Cam. I would think probably Cam Ward. I just, I think he's the better quarterback. I think he's got the higher percentage chance to go number one overall. There's a lot more Shedeur Sanders out there than there is Cam Ward, so that is probably how I would prioritize. And again, it's, I get what people are saying about the, we'll just find it later on social media, but I'm here to do I'm speaking specifically for our audience. I'm here to do the radio show. If I've only got one half of the story and then 3 hours after the radio show or a couple hours after the radio show, I finally get the opportunity to see what Shedeur Sanders says, I don't know. I don't think that helps everybody, but I understand their point. It's mostly, I'm making it about me. It's mostly about me. I get it.
Surprise.
Let's take it away from you and make it about what people want to hear about, and that's the NFL, because got some headlines that have come down from the last couple days.
We sure do. 615-737-1045. The number is how you get involved. If you have thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns, live here from Indianapolis, Greg Cosell will join us at, I have to do the times in my head. He will join us at 11:20 today, 12:20 Eastern, up here in Indianapolis. So we'll look forward to Greg's analysis as well. NFL headlines are next.
It's time for NFL headlines with Lucas Panzica.
San Francisco, go ahead.
5 minutes. It's 5 minutes of the music. Why?
That's not true.
What do you mean it's not true?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Why do you insist on dragging the audience through that each and every time? Shame
That's
on you
how
both.
long it's been the entire time.
Been doing it
Nobody
the exact same
believes
way.
you. Nobody believes you.
Doing it the exact same way.
me
San
the
Francisco
headlines.
49ers general manager John Lynch does not know when a contract extension for quarterback Brock Purdy will be done, but he said yesterday that discussions toward that outcome have already begun. Lynch spoke to reporters in Indianapolis, and he confirmed that conversations between the Niners and Purdy have been underway. He said the focus continues to be on making Brock Purdy the San Francisco 49ers franchise quarterback for the long haul. And the natural next question is, what kind of contract will Brock Purdy command? And the level I add to that question is, what does that look like in relation to Matthew Stafford, who is looking for in the neighborhood of $50 million in average annual value? Matthew Stafford is obviously a more accomplished quarterback. I think we would say a better quarterback than Brock Purdy, but the age is an obvious factor here. So I'm very interested to see what the market value looks like for Brock Purdy. He's not necessarily hitting the market, it would seem, but I'm very interested in what this final number looks like.
I mean, if Dak's making 60, you have to pay Purdy more. Like, that's just what it is. He's a more accomplished. It's about the resume. And to your point about, I would agree with you, obviously, that Stafford is a more talented quarterback than Brock Purdy. But is he a better quarterback for the 49ers? Like, if Matt Stafford was available in the San Francisco 49ers, like, it's not necessarily about the more talented quarterback. It's who fits what they want to do better. Who do you trust more? Who works within your system? Who do you know that you can do the most with? Now, theoretically, you would say, well, Stafford, you idiot. What are you talking about? But that was kind of the logic behind the Trey Lance pick, and obviously that's an extreme, but it still didn't work out for a couple of different reasons. So I just have to imagine it's 62, between 62 and 65 AAV, right? Like that they have to. They have a choice.
Putting it that way, that if Dak is making 60, then Purdy has to make more, is what makes the most sense. Yeah.
I mean, Dak has never played in a conference championship game. Purdy regularly has them in the NFC Championship game, if not competing for Super Bowls. And, yeah, they had a down year. And I don't know if this is also included in your headlines, but John Lynch also mentioned at that press conference that they are absolutely willing to let Deebo Samuel pursue a trade. So they seem, they're picking their battles, and the battle that they are most interested in winning is the Brock Purdy contract. So how he looks if you start to get lesser around him, that's kind of the Mahomes proposition. How much more can you do with Brock Purdy? If you start to denigrate the skill positions or the offensive line or the defense as a result of that mega contract, but the cap's going to go up, and it's just these deals happen this way, and the cap goes up. And you live with it, and you suffer through it for 1 year, and you maneuver the cap hits as best as humanly possible to make it less painful. If you're San Francisco, you might consider trying to do a longer-term type of deal. Like Mahomes signed a 10-year deal, and that's not for Pat. That's not because Patrick Mahomes is worried about contract security. It's because that's giving the team financial flexibility each year to maneuver around his deal or move the money around as they see fit to be able to accommodate that specific contract. We know that Mahomes is worth more, but Mahomes also understands that he wants to continue to win at a high level. It's kind of the same way, to a much less extreme than Brady did with the pay cuts that he was almost accused of taking to the detriment of the NFLPA.
When people say the cap is fake, are they basically saying the cap is capping? Food for thought. Albert Breer puts out his notebook on a weekly basis.
You didn't even get a pity chuckle from Jackson. There's no way. I could feel you.
Came in late.
I can't see you.
I can't. No,
he's laughing at me. I can't see you right now. But
I thought
know
that joke had lots of aura.
Shut up.
It was very chuggy.
I could feel it in my soul. The minute that you said it, the turnaround to look at him for some kind of support.
I don't have to
God.
turn around. I'm looking right at him.
No. Oh, you're sitting in my chair. Oh, see, when I leave, he sits in my chair.
And he's Winnie the Poohing it, no pants.
There's a prospect here yesterday. I think he's a linebacker. His name's like Poop Hall or something like that. It made me laugh.
Oh, DeMario on the FNM Bank chat says, bars. I agree. Albert Breer, his notebook on a weekly basis. Interesting nugget here about Matt Stafford. Breer says, with news of the New York Giants meeting with Matthew Stafford's camp and more smoke on the Raiders' interest in the LA Rams quarterback, we'll get to that in the source-off that we'll discuss.
Yeah, source-off, baby. Let's go.
It outwardly looks like, according to Breer, this saga is starting to gain momentum toward closure. And maybe it happens this week, whether the Rams up their offer and lock Stafford in, or another team swings a trade for him. But if things drag out, there is a soft deadline coming. $4 million of the $27 million in cash Stafford is due in 2025 will come in the form of a roster bonus on March 14th. Breer says, my guess is this gets done before then because legal tampering kicks off March 10th. The league year starts on March 12th. So the best thing for the Rams and other teams involved, and by Stafford himself, is to have finality by then. Once the sides here reach that point, then, he says, I think we start to hear more on the other dominoes, Rodgers, Cousins, Darnold, etc. I add, parenthetically, the best case scenario for me in regards to the Titans and Matthew Stafford is that the New York Giants do not land Matthew Stafford. It just takes away one more suitor for the number one pick if the Titans are seeking a trade.
Well, our buddy Danny Heifetz of the Ringer is going to come over here and talk about that and a couple of different things. Obviously, the Giants picking close to the top of the draft order. Danny covers the NFL and fantasy specifically, but he's a diehard Giants fan, a miserable Giants fan. And I know he's going to have some thoughts on that in the noon hour. In this whole thing with the Stafford and the Rams is weird. Like, who got closer to knocking off Philadelphia last year, certainly in the postseason, than the Rams?
Nobody.
That's what I'm saying. Like, what are they doing? Why is this at all a talking point? Other than, are they reticent to pay him what he's worth? It has to be on the side of the Rams, and it's especially weird, Lucas, from this organization, because it doesn't mean that you can't have philosophical pivots from time to time as things around your organization change. Like, nobody's saying you have to have the same mantra all the way through, but this is the organization that was bleep them picks, gave up picks to get Matt Stafford, now is all of a sudden interested in being a less competitive football team, acquiring draft capital by getting rid of one of the best quarterbacks in the sport?
Yeah, it'd be surprising.
What the hell sense does that make?
It would be surprising. I get the approach of checking all of our boxes. Okay, let's see what other teams believe you are worth. Let's just kind of, leave no stone unturned, right, on what we could get for him, just so we have all the information. But I think we'd all still be surprised if Matt Stafford's not an LA Ram in 2020.
I'd be shocked. I just would be shocked because it would make so little sense.
Quickly, along that line of quarterback news, the New Orleans Saints are indicating that they're sticking with Derek Carr in 2025. Yeah. Mickey Loomis, the Saints GM, sat down with reporters, of course, at the Combine yesterday. He said the Saints were, quote, excited about it. I think we feel like we've got a guy we can win with. Kellen Moore, the new Saints head coach, said, we feel fortunate to have Derek here, the experience he has. He is a big-time quarterback in this league. And a reminder that the Saints have an out on Carr's contract this offseason. They would take on a dead cap hit of over $50 million, but they would avoid a cap hit of $51 million in 2025 and over $61 million in 2026. They could, of course, also restructure the cap, do be capping. ESPN draft analyst Matt Miller has recently said that
Jackson, I want you to walk into the studio and smack him on the back of the head like a scene out of The Sopranos. Just whack him.
Okay. Matt Miller has recently said that the Saints front office loves Spencer Rattler. So is this the Saints actually saying, no, we love Derek Carr, we're going to stick with him? Or is this the Saints saying, oh, we love Derek Carr, it's going to take something pretty pricey for you to take him away from us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes is the answer. It's open for business is the answer to that question. Somebody, a side note, did you get smacked in the back of the head? Yeah.
Get out of here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope the audience on Zone TV is able to watch you getting smacked in the back of the head. I mean, it's limiting for it sounds like it's good, borderline abuse back there. It sounds to me like they are keeping their options available, but right now the option that they have under contract is Derek Carr.
Yeah.
And that they're not in a better position right now to do anything but play Derek Carr. And while it may not be the most ideal situation, like, I don't know, the Saints are in a scenario where they've got a couple of years. They're going to have a couple of years to figure this thing out because there's no clear and obvious path forward for them, even though the division is winnable. And I don't know. I mean, is Derek Carr like say who won the division last year? The Bucs.
Yep. Yeah, Falcons kind of blew it, but yeah,
right.
the Bucs.
The Falcons blew it down the stretch, but like, okay, nobody trusts the Falcons. Falcons fans will certainly tell you not to trust the Falcons. The Buccaneers, Liam Cohen is leaving Tampa Bay, and I don't know that Baker won't be able to recreate that magic, but it's going to be interesting to find out. That division is interesting, and I think that the Saints, I don't know. I would take Derek Carr. I know that some Titans fans would roll their eyes and be like, oh, I don't want to stopgap retread. You know, he's always been kind of a middling quarterback. Okay, I would sell my soul for middling quarterback play at this point in time. I'm tired of watching just abject disaster week after week after week. Me and Ramon were talking about this earlier today because I went to the Indiana game last. Oh, I know we got to go to break, so I don't want to get too long-winded in it. But we were talking about the idea. Had I gone to Bloomington to watch my team lose, how much worse of a mood I would have been in. And I said I'm just resigned to watching teams lose at this point in time because I cover the Tennessee Titans, and that's all they do. I would kill for middling quarterback play. So they're not going to do any better at this point in time. We've got a lot more time though to work through these things. Greg Cosell is going to join us in the second hour, live here from the NFL Scouting Combine. I'm Buck Rising. Our coverage presented by Wholesale Supply.
It is 11:03. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. Medical news this morning about the potential number one pick, edge rusher Abdul Carter out of Penn State. Multiple reports stating Carter has a stress reaction in his right foot, and he was facing the possibility of surgery after Wednesday's testing. But doctors have advised Carter against surgery, and he is expected to work out at Penn State's Pro Day March 28th. According to Adam Schefter, Carter will not be on the field today as workouts officially begin at Lucas Oil Stadium at the Combine with defensive linemen and outside linebackers. Speaking of potential number one picks, Colorado star Travis Hunter met with the media an hour ago and maintained that he plans on playing both wide receiver and corner in the NFL.
I did some meetings at receiver, did some meetings at DB, so it's still up in the air. They say nobody has ever done it for real the way I do it, but I tell them that I'm just different. I'm a different person.
For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2, live from the Indianapolis NFL Scouting Combine. We're happy to have you. Thanks for spending some time. 615-737-1045 is the number. Lucas, the Underwear Olympics begin today. People are excited. Indy is a buzz, except for the top defensive line prospect, as the defensive linemen begin the workouts today, has a stress reaction. Not a stress fracture, but a stress reaction in his foot, which may, if he decides to get a surgical procedure on it, may require him to have a bolt in his foot and have a requisite recovery time of about 8 weeks, which would then put his pro day in a bit of a precarious position, unless you ask his agent, who says he's getting ready. He couldn't be more excited to put on a full show at the Penn State Pro Day. That, of course, is Abdul Carter. That's the news of the day. It was the news of the very, very late evening. Adam Schefter first with that report. Are you excited? Are you making bets on who's going to run the fastest 40 or among the fat guys? What is your level of interest in the Underwear Olympics that finally, mercifully, gets underway today here in Indianapolis?
Well, we already knew that Carter was not going to be working out as he recovers from the shoulder injury that he played through in the college football playoff. That's another thing, by the way. Speaking of the college football calendar, as it gets longer and longer, we saw multiple prospects this year not go to the Senior Bowl because they were just coming off a national championship, and now injuries sustained in the playoff that keeps them out of combine workouts. So just kind of something to think about with the college football calendar. The latest development from Schefter was not last night. It was this morning when doctors told him that surgery is not advisable and he will work out in his a month from now, a month tomorrow, March 28th, in his pro day at Penn State. So I don't think it was as drastic as it maybe seemed like it would be last night. If surgery was required to put a screw in his foot, that certainly would have raised eyebrows, and eyebrows are being raised no matter what. This guy could be the number one overall pick. But we played the Field Yates audio in the first segment opening the show saying not disregarded the injury, but said he has no problem still picking Abdul Carter number one overall to the Titans despite this news. So certainly not as serious as it seemed like it could have been.
Well, let's revisit that audio specifically in the noon hour, if we could, because I would like to hear that for myself. 615-737-1045 is how you join the radio show. Greg Cosell will join the radio show here in just about 15 minutes from now, and we will get Greg's insights and analysis. He's been spending a lot of time with coaches throughout the course of the week. He even graced Kirby with his presence at dinner last night. I'm sure there was some high-level thought going on while I journeyed down to Bloomington to watch my basketball team win. I thought that's how we were going to open the second hour to start the show, but that's fine. We can put that off till later if you want. The Vols at the Combine is something that obviously people locally care about and people nationally care about as well. You've got prospects like James Pierce, who's I feel bad almost calling him a borderline first-round draft pick because I do believe that the talent is commensurate of a first-round draft pick. But it seems right now there are some questions that he's going to answer throughout the course of the interview process, so let's just call him a borderline first-round player right now. There's also Dylan Sampson, who is one of the youngest, if not the youngest, prospect in attendance here in Indianapolis. Of course, the Tennessee running back, Omar Norman Lott, the interior defensive lineman. We've talked about the two receivers, Brew McCoy and Dante Thornton, and how they stack up relative to the rest of the class, where it's not necessarily the best wide receiver class that you've ever seen, but it doesn't mean that you can't make some headway. And that's all of these players, right? All of these players, there's 6, I believe, in total from the University of Tennessee who are up here in Indy and getting ready to go through the full circuit. All 6 could benefit from a good testing weekend. Who couldn't benefit from a good testing weekend, I guess? But I think all have something to prove in some form or fashion relative to the rest of their position groups. If I asked the audience the question, 615-737-1045, or the F&M Bank Chat, who I guess is technically a part of the audience, even if they are, whatever degree we put the F&M Bank Chat audience in, or Lucas or Jackson, given that they're both UT alum and UT fans. Which player can help themselves the most at the University of Tennessee specific to the combine testing? I'm not entirely sure who my answer might be, because I think the natural reaction, the knee-jerk reaction, would be to say James Pierce. But James Pierce is an incredibly talented player. There is no question that James Pierce is talented. There is no question that there are some things to his game that could stand to be improved, but that at worst he's a day 2 draft pick. Even if he does have some of the attitude stuff that is being rumored around him, but he's very excited to clear up. At least that was his line at the podium yesterday. I honestly think the answer is Dante Thornton. I think he could stand to do himself the most good here. I don't have many questions about what Dylan Sampson is. Obviously, you're talking about upside there. Youth is something that works in his favor. Teams will look at him and not. We talked about the differences, obviously, and Vols fans will know the difference between Dylan Sampson and Jalen Wright, for example, the Tennessee running back who got drafted by the Miami Dolphins last year. And he could certainly help himself as well. But I don't know if the answer is not Dante Thornton, because I don't know if he's a late day 3 pick just based on the measurables, and if he can't do a good deal of work here that would help improve his draft stock. I know that's not at the top of everybody's minds right now, but that's how I at least was taking this question. The Vol that needs to test the best based on what I think NFL teams might look at him for is Dante Thornton to me.
Yeah, and there's no question for James Pierce this week, the important thing is the interview process, right? The conversations he's having with teams. In fact, Jackson, can we hear from James Pierce about just what he's trying to prove to teams this week at the Combine?
Just being great every day, showing up and doing it day in, day out. On the football field, I don't like when people try to play me as anything less than I am. I'm a great player.
How would you describe your play and what you bring to a defense?
Fast, athletic, IQ strong, IQ high, knowing where the ball going to end up, bringing a lot, making plays on the field.
So, obviously, the interview process is most important for him, but he still has a big chance to pop in the testing. He is a bit of an athletic freak, but I agree with you. His floor feels like a second-round pick, just with those traits. Interesting.
It's the position that he plays.
Yeah.
It's the skill set that he brings. Like, I can't imagine him falling past day 2.
I agree. You bring up Dante Thornton. That's interesting, and I don't disagree. I mean, he feels like the Tennessee player that could most turn heads with his 40, at least, just as a deep threat. That's what he was by many metrics, one of the better deep threats from an efficiency standpoint in college football last year. My answer would be Dylan Sampson, just because he feels like a guy in this deep class of running backs that could kind of fall through the cracks a little bit, if that makes sense. And if he has a big day at the Combine, we saw how that helped Jalen Wright last year. His 40 time really boosted his draft profile after Indianapolis in 2024. But if Dylan Sampson can have a big day, when do running backs go? Tomorrow or Friday? Or
I will find
Sunday?
the schedule for you.
But if Dylan Sampson can have a big day in testing, he will have the tape for teams to fall back on, right? Like, okay, he really popped. Let's take another look at him. he was the single season program record leader for Tennessee last year. No running back in Tennessee history has done what Dylan Sampson did last year. And Tennessee's had some incredible running backs come through over the years that have made an impact in the NFL. Fumbling is an issue for him, but he's an outspoken guy, was in front of the media a lot in Knoxville. Not that that's the only metric to measure a guy's football character, but, that's the only thing we get to see. And they had no problem rolling him out there consistently throughout the course of the season. But if he can pop at Lucas Oil Stadium, he has the production and the tape to back that up as well and kind of avoid falling into that trapdoor, so to speak, because the running back position is so deep this year.
So the schedule, just for our own edification and for the audiences, defensive linemen and linebackers are going to test today. That begins at 3 p.m. Eastern time here in Indianapolis, so 2 p.m. back home. Defensive backs and tight ends tomorrow. Quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs Saturday at noon. And then the offensive linemen will get it going on Sunday. So that is the NFL Combine testing schedule at this point in time. Saturday, the main event. Saturday, the sexiest of the testing days, because that's, the quarterbacks and the skill position players. All right. Coming up next, we are going to get into some prospect evaluation with Greg Cosell of NFL Films, who will join us here. We'll do a live version of the install. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Is your love language money? Then call Trajan Wealth for a free consultation, because you've definitely asked yourself at some point, will I have enough money when I retire? When should I start to draw from Social Security? If these questions keep you up at night, let me introduce you to a team that's there to keep you on the right track and guide you through it. That's Trajan Wealth, Trajan Wealth. Not just any financial firm, your partners in securing your financial future. Trajan Wealth is not just a fiduciary firm. They're a family-owned, veteran-led team that puts your needs first. Let their decades of experience specializing in retirement planning and wealth management work for you. Trajan Wealth offers free consultations to help you develop your plan and your peace of mind. So call them today at 615-270-5000. That's 615-270-5000, or visit them online at TrajanWealth.com. Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. This is a paid advertisement.
Did you know you're overpaying for your health and wellness products?
With over 20 company-owned brands offering its members vitamins, supplements, wellness, and skincare products, you're able to save up to 70% off retail.
Members Nutrition can't change your life, but we can change the way you live.
Welcome back here in Indianapolis. The NFL Scouting Combine underway. We are always pleased to have our good buddy Greg Cosell of NFL Films join us, not just weekly for the Install podcast, of which we are very excited to do the live show on Friday, May the 2nd, not even a full week removed from the NFL Draft in Nashville. Greg, this is one of the, as Mike Borgonzi calls them, touch points of the pre-draft process. Just gets us a little bit closer to the main event.
You know, and I got to just tell you, you mentioned the install, which I'm really looking forward to. So I met someone last night who's in the financial services business. They were actually at dinner, believe it or not, at the same restaurant. I was forced to go to dinner with Kirby last night, so I fought through it.
He will put you in his car and just hold you hostage.
I know.
Greg.
I fought through it. So and then I saw this gentleman later in the evening, and he lives in Nashville, and I told him, hey, you got to come to the install, and he put in his calendar. He said, I'm going to be there.
We love to see it.
Yeah, I figured I'd do a little, promotion.
He better get some tickets fast. They're selling quickly, Greg.
Hey, all right. Well,
we're moving fast.
I saw him in his phone, put it in his calendar.
Okay, well then I'll make sure that I'll make sure we put us.
I know he can afford it because he lives in Brentwood.
That's right, all you people in Brentwood listening to the show. We know that you can pony up the $30 to come see the draft show. 1045thezone.com is where you get the tickets, where you can come hang out with Greg and me and so many other Titans fans. 2 consecutive sellouts, and we're looking forward to a third on Friday, May the 2nd. We're looking forward to the testing, which is getting ready to get underway. But Greg, since the Titans have the number 1 overall pick and have been asked a great many questions about these players specifically, you thought that we should go through these players specifically and what the Titans had to say about it, and then we could kind of discuss.
Yeah. I mean, this is the news in the sense of the day because, you obviously had Mike Borgonzi on, you had Coach Callahan on. I didn't hear all that, obviously, so, I'd be curious what they had to say, and obviously they're not going to give away any state secrets, but you get a sense when you hear coaches talk or GMs talk, just reading between the lines.
And it's a pretty relaxed setting here.
Yeah,
it's not like a podium where, 7,000 people are throwing questions at this, that, and the other. So I thought we did get at least a degree of transparency at this point in time. So let's start with Travis Hunter, who Mike Borgonzi said he's never seen a player like him before. That's a pretty general statement, but specific to the percentage of snaps that the kid played, the fact that he can be as adept at both positions as he is. Greg, the tape evaluation on him, I imagine, is fascinating because he's doing it all. He's playing damn near 100% of the snaps at both of these positions, both premium positions at the NFL level.
And I'm sure that's what Mike meant by that, because we really haven't seen anybody do that, in a, I don't know, going back, to the 50s or 60s. Yeah. And that's really impressive in and of itself. I'm not sure people realize how impressive that is. My guess is that's not going to happen in the NFL. In fact,
I was tell him that.
Right. I was talking to a reporter from Denver who had a chance to talk to Champ Bailey, obviously a Hall of Fame corner who played wide receiver as well in college at Georgia. And Champ Bailey, who obviously knows more about this than I do, said there's no way he's going to play 130 snaps a game in the NFL. So, he knows more. Maybe he's wrong, but, you have to accept that as a meaningful response. To me, he's a corner as his primary position. I think you create packages on offense for him, but I'd be hard-pressed to believe he's going to play 70 snaps on defense and 60 snaps on offense. I'd be hard-pressed to believe that you can do that in the NFL.
And that's a reasonable expectation. I look at him, Greg, and I understand that, his position is, well, I'm going to do it unless they tell me that they don't want me to do it, and that's his attitude.
And that's wonderful.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. But in reality, there is going to have to be more dedicated training at the position at the NFL level.
And here's the other thing. It's the coaching part during the week, because now you have to be coached in the detail and nuance and subtlety and disciplines of playing in the NFL that have to go through the week. Is there enough time? Are there enough hours in the week for him to be coached that way on 2 sides of the ball?
Yeah.
It's not just, you're good enough to do it. Just go out there and play receiver.
And Brian Callahan agrees with your assessment about him being a corner. And interesting to hear Andrew Berry, the two teams with the number one overall pick, say, no, we think he's, based on what we've seen or how we view him as a wide receiver, because they're trying to get him 100 touches a year.
And you know what? It's funny. Offensive coach. I've heard Jay Gruden, and I've heard him talk, and he, as an offensive coach, he's thinking, he's a receiver. I want the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
Offensive coaches think that way, and defensive coaches say, hey, man, he's a corner, because there's not as many corners as there are receivers.
Yeah.
Theoretically, you can always get receivers. Maybe in Tennessee they don't think like that as much as some other teams.
No, but it's a bitter talking point. They got one, and then they gave him one.
Right.
We don't have to relitigate that one.
Right, but I mean, the point is, there's always more receivers that you can line up with, and there's fewer so-called big-time corners, and I think his corner tape's good. Like, I wouldn't put him in the corner category. I wouldn't. Maybe others do. And I love these are the conversations I've been having. I've been here for 48 hours, and I've had so many wonderful conversations with coaches, and I wouldn't personally put him, let's say, in the Patrick Surtain category when Surtain came out, and I think Surtain is pretty universally considered the best corner in the league. But there's no question Hunter is a high-level corner prospect.
Relative to the rest of his class, because you and I will obviously do more dedicated
we'll
positional previews, but relative to the rest of the cornerback class, how do you see him?
He'd be the number one corner. There are others I like.
Okay.
Like, there's a corner that I'm very anxious to see how he runs. I guess corners are Friday, so today's D-line and linebackers. I'm very curious to see an SEC corner that I'm sure a lot of our listeners know from Ole Miss, named Trey Amos, who's long, pretty athletic. I really liked his tape a lot. I'm really anxious to see him run. To me, he's the kind of guy, and the thing is, 40 times for corners do matter. It's one of the positions where it matters. There's not many where it really matters. It matters for corners, and coaches view it as important. So if Amos runs a 4.41, I think he's a first-round player. If he runs a 4.47, my guess is he'd be a second-round player.
Right.
But I really liked his tape.
Greg Cosell of NFL Films here with us. We're doing a live version of the install. You can get another live version of the install in the not-too-distant future on May the 2nd. The ticket's available for the live show. Greg's coming into Nashville for a third straight year to give you the analysis that you can't get anywhere else. It's the envy of the league. I know the Bills were jealous of our event last year with Rand Carthon, and obviously we're looking forward to another great one this year. Well, we'll be able to talk about free agency and the draft after the fact. 1045thezone.com is where you go. Abdul Carter, obviously in the news, Greg, a stress reaction in his foot was discovered yesterday in the middle of the medical evaluation.
So he's not going to work out.
And was not planning on working out because of the shoulder anyway.
That's
but
right,
that was an initial development. They're saying it's not necessarily, the reporting from Adam Schefter this morning at least, was that surgery not necessarily advisable for him at this point in time. So we'll see what tact they choose to take. But from a player standpoint, Mike Borgonzi has talked a great deal about building through the trenches. And we know that the Titans struggled to get to the quarterback last year. We'll see what becomes of the Harold Landry development, because they've allowed him to pursue a trade. Which
tells you all you need to know.
Correct.
Right.
How much of an upgrade would Abdul Carter provide to a front like the Titans that has Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat, but not any kind of top-tier pass rush option?
They don't have an edge player. And every team wants to have someone that first obviously can rush the quarterback off the edge, but then the second part of that equation, that changes the way offenses, particularly in pure pass situations, have to play against you. Because when you have a big-time edge player, unless you have big-time offensive tackles, very often what you see on tape in the NFL, and people remember, that's what we're doing here. We're talking about playing in the NFL now. Very often what you see teams that have to chip an edge player or keep a tight end or a back end, which means there's one less eligible receiver. So you win the numbers game defensively, theoretically, before the play starts, because now there's one less eligible receiver that's out as a primary option. So Carter I've done him. He's very explosive. He's probably still learning how to play because he was a stacked backer in 2023. So he's still learning how to play on the edge. And again, no player comes into the NFL as a finished product. We know that. But he's clearly explosive. He's a dynamic athlete. He's 200. We didn't get the numbers yet, do we?
Not officially. He looked a little thicker at the podium, but he's not been training necessarily as he recovers.
Right, because he's been hurt.
Yeah.
Right. So he's probably going to be in the 250 range.
Yeah.
And again, you don't want to necessarily say that. I'm always leery of making direct comparisons, but the way in which he was deployed this year at Penn State and the way in which I imagine you would see him deployed in the league is very much like a Micah Parsons.
Yeah. Best prospect in the class to you?
See, I may.
We don't got to do a big board if you don't want to.
No, I may be in the
curious.
minority, but I really like Cam Ward. So
Okay.
I don't know how Mike Borgonzi or Brian Callahan sees him, but I really like Cam Ward. Now I'm not. Carter is a big time prospect without question. But I'm a Cam Ward guy based on tape.
He's a quarterback, and as I've heard you talk about previously, I can't remember which podcast it was that I heard you speaking about Cam Ward, but you believe him to be worthy of the number one overall pick.
I do. And I'm sure that's a point that reasonable people would disagree on, but I believe that based on tape. And I've done him. I did 7 or 8 games last summer from Washington State, and I think I did 8 or 9 games this year from the U.
So I guess from the follow-up for me would be, where do you believe, based on tape, that reasonable disagreement is born out of? Because if there was consensus at about a quarterback in a draft, we would know by now. Well, there was no disputing that Joe Burrow was going to be the number one overall pick.
Right.
That Trevor Lawrence was going to be the number one overall pick. And this year, that's not quite clear.
No, it's not. That's a great question because for me, I don't think I think he has really high-level traits. My guess is there are going to be people who believe that his lower body mechanics are not always what you want it to be. I've heard people say things like, well, there are plays in which he appears lackadaisical. Things like that. But I think in terms of...
From a mechanical standpoint, lackadaisical?
Just in kind of body language, the way in which he plays.
Okay.
But in terms of, he's got a live arm. He can play from the pocket. He can make plays outside of structure. I mean, there's a number of plays this year where he's running to his left and then he just drives the football. And again, it's not a as I said, I don't like to make comparisons, but, I always say to my interns, on the matchup show or to people I work with on the matchup show, if I see a play, I call them in and say, hey, look at this. If Patrick Mahomes did this, wouldn't we be saying that's unbelievable? So if Cam Ward does it, why are we not saying it's unbelievable?
Yeah.
And again, I this was not meant to be a direct comparison.
Sure.
Just the idea that if you're going to say that, wow, look at what Patrick Mahomes just did, then if someone else does something that's exactly the same, why are we not saying that that's great too?
Yeah. No, I think that's completely reasonable by you.
Yeah.
And that's been one of the more confusing parts of this specific draft cycle is why, I don't know, narratives are what they are, right?
Right.
The tape is the tape.
Right.
At the end of the day.
And the bottom line is this, and I don't know what Mike Borgonzi said, but in most drafts, there are 15 to 18 players that have true first-round grades. In this draft, I'm being told that there's only about 10.
Yeah.
But 32 teams have to draft in the first round. So you have to draft someone. And it's not a quarterback draft, and it's not a wide receiver draft. So there's a lot of positions and a lot of players who, in a vacuum, would technically not be first-round grade players who are going to get drafted in the first round.
Yeah.
Because you have to draft someone.
Right.
You're not going to say, nah, we pick 18, but we only had 10 guys who are first-round picks, so we're not going to draft. It doesn't work that way. So you know me well enough to know I don't sit around with, who's, let me make a list. I just love to evaluate players
Sure.
and talk about evaluations. And the one thing I always try to get across to people is this is not a mathematical equation. There's so many variables when it comes to players in terms of where they go, how they're coached, what scheme they're put in, how they're deployed, what do they have around them, there's so many factors that go into it. It's not a black and white 2+2=4 situation.
Selfishly, for our purposes, Greg, I hope the Titans do draft him because I would love to talk about a quarterback when we do the live show.
I mean,
we'll be talking quarterback anyway.
We're going to be doing that anyway.
They're
either going to draft one or not draft one, and then the question is, by then, there's going to be, probably another quarterback on their roster one way or the other, and we'll be talking about it.
Absolutely. So for you, from a tape standpoint, the gulf between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders,
to me, is meaningful. I mean, and the way I answer that question, and again, you always have to feel like you have to qualify this because the way people, they see it as a 2+2=4 thing, as an equation. The way the NFL has evolved with the way defenses play now is to be a pure pocket player, which is essentially what Shedeur Sanders is, okay, essentially. Can he run for a first down once in a while? Yeah, but he's a pocket quarterback. You have to be so good in the pre-snap phase and the post-snap phase. And the post-snap phase, by the way, has 10 variables that we could, talk about, which we can get into, over the course of the next month.
Sure.
And I'm not saying that Shedeur Sanders can't do that, but at his core, he's a ball distributor and an efficient executor of an offense. So what that means is he needs a good O-line. He needs a run game. He needs other pieces around him that are good players. He needs a defense so that he's not being asked early in his career to have to drop back 35 or 45 times every week. He needs to be in a situation where he doesn't have to put up 30 points every week and feel like every single drive, is an oh my God drive. You need a lot of things to be a pocket quarterback in this league. Like I would look at Shedeur Sanders, and by the way, like I said, he could end up being very good, but that's what he is.
Sure.
To me, he's not the same level of prospect as, let's say, C.J. Stroud coming out of Ohio State, who is very much stylistically similar. A pocket quarterback.
Right.
Stroud's got a better thrower and a bigger kid.
Yeah. Greg Cosell of NFL Films has been kind enough to sit down with us for a live version of the Install podcast. You can get more of this. It's just a taste. We get the testing getting going today. We get heights. We get weights. We get 40s. Yeah. We get all the good stuff. And we're looking forward to seeing how teams come out of this combine feeling about the personalities as well, because the individual analysis, the meetings, even though it's only 18 minutes in length, they certainly go out of their way to maximize those things, Greg, and it will certainly influence how these teams go about the draft process.
And it also influences the 30 players that the teams want to bring in.
Right.
Because if they interview a kid and they find out maybe they like his tape, but they interview a kid and go, oh, my God, I don't like the kid at all, they may decide, hey, we don't want to draft this kid. Or maybe they look at a guy's tape and they're not sure, but then they interview the kid and they go, man, this kid, we want him in our building. So they learn a lot of things.
Yeah, we'll look forward to learning a lot more coming out of the week at Indianapolis. Certainly Greg has many more high-level conversations to have with much smarter people than me around the NFL.
Like I had with Kirby last night.
I'm telling you, I don't know if I could pick two better conversational people to go to dinner with than Greg Cosell and Kirby Allen Kirby. Kirby says it was so much fun last night. I'm sorry that I missed out, but I'm not sorry that I got to see my basketball team get a win.
You were down at IU, and you saw a win, which they've been a little few and far between this year, unfortunately.
I can always count on Greg. Greg has connections to Indiana as well.
With my older daughter having graduated from there.
So it makes me happy to be able to talk college basketball with Greg from time to time, and also to talk ball with Greg as we get ready for another draft process. Thank you, my friend.
Hey, this was fun.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
615-737-1045 if you would like to react to anything that Greg just had to say specific to the quarterbacks or any of the prospects that we talked about, and we can certainly talk about the gulf that Greg mentioned between those two top quarterback prospects coming up next. fueled by Hattie B's Hot Chicken. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved. A lot of interesting stuff there from Greg, huh, guys? What do you think back there of what Cosell's analysis of the quarterbacks specifically were?
I had not heard him speak that strongly on Cam Ward to this point, being the best prospect in the draft, saying that there's a gulf to him between him and Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, as we sort of annotate every time Greg comes on, that is strictly based on the tape. So, how much teams determine about Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders based on the interview process, we have no idea. But I had not heard him talk that way about Cam Ward up to this point.
Well, that's because he hasn't. That's the first time that I've really gotten into it with him as well. And I had talked to him and texted back and forth with him, obviously getting ready for the show each week about, all right, when are we going to do the quarterbacks and how much time do you need to watch the quarterbacks before we actually talk about it? And obviously we'll do a positional preview because there's more quarterbacks than just the two. I know for our discussion there have only been two quarterbacks, but there are more quarterbacks in this draft class, believe it or not. And, I think that's the first time that Greg has, with the full benefit of tape study leading up to this, expressed that strong of opinion specific to Cam Ward versus Abdul Carter, for example.
Interesting. So him saying Cam Ward is the number one prospect in the draft was interesting. That's not an opinion I've heard hardly anywhere from any draft analyst to this point in the process.
No, and for Greg, for example, right? He starts watching college tape Senior Bowl week, the week between the AFC Championship, NFC Championship weekend, and the Super Bowl, because there's no football, there's no tape to break down, there's no NFL matchup show, so he can start to dive in on the college prospects. And I don't know what everybody else's process is. By the time we get here, all of the draft analysts by trade have watched the tape, and now it's about, all right, how do scouts feel about the tape versus what you're seeing on tape, and how have the interviews gone, and does that affect the way that you feel about the tape, kind of like we talked about with the Vols prospects, for example, the testing and all the different things that factor in throughout the course of the lead up to this thing. But yeah, I mean, I trust Greg's analysis more than just about anybody else, and I know I'm biased because he's my buddy, but he makes some very good points that I think, honestly, Lucas, what you're saying about draft analysts who haven't spoken out quite that strongly about it, and we didn't necessarily ask Emory Hunt yesterday who his number one overall prospect was, so maybe that's just an error on our part, but Emory basically said the same thing that Greg did, which is Mahomes, as an example, is just kind of the conduit for both of them. Greg's analysis was, well, when you see Mahomes do it on tape and then you see Cam Ward do it on tape, why are we not talking about those things? And Emory invoked the idea of the 2017 draft class. Obviously, that's Trubisky at 2, and then Watson later, Mahomes after that, and kind of what the dialogue, what the narrative was around that draft class too. Emory said that he was warning people, don't sleep on this draft class. Don't sleep on Mahomes or Watson based on the system or the player. Don't discount this thing just because you're not in love or because this doesn't look exactly the way that you think it should look at that position. Greg and Emory are basically saying the same thing, and those are two of the smartest people I know about this stuff.
Yeah, Emory's comparison to the 2017 draft class is fascinating because the more I think back to that year, he's absolutely right. I mean, there's a lot of similarities there because Mitch Trubisky, like you said, being the first quarterback taken in that draft at number 2 overall to the Bears, that wasn't a stunning development, right? I mean, I think we
knew. That was it.
Right. Yeah. Like Mitch Trubisky, and there were questions about if Mitch Trubisky could be a franchise quarterback. The whole thing about him coming out was he had one season as the full-time starter at UNC where they went 8-4. But it wasn't this big shock that he was the name called ahead of Deshaun Watson and Pat Mahomes. And Deshaun Watson and Pat Mahomes were crazy productive in their college careers, like Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward have been in their college careers. Deshaun Watson won a national championship at Clemson. And then Pat Mahomes was part of that air raid offense under Cliff Kingsbury. They didn't win a ton, but they were losing games 55-48, right? 55-50. And his numbers were crazy, but there were a lot of red flags there. And Andy Reid's done an unbelievable job of making some of those red flags actually strengths for Pat Mahomes that have made him a generational player at that position. So those comparisons really intrigued me from Emory Hunt, because you look at these two quarterbacks, there's no Mitch Trubisky that we say, oh, this guy's definitely going to go over these two. It's kind of like you take Trubisky out of the equation and you look at Deshaun Watson, Pat Mahomes. This year, that version is Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. Obviously different players, but you get what I'm saying in that they were crazy productive in their college careers, but there's kind of questions. There's not really any degree of certainty that they can be a franchise quarterback, and they obviously both were. Watson, we get how that all played out, but Deshaun Watson was the franchise quarterback of the Houston Texans until everything came crashing down with the allegations from the massage therapist. So, it is a very interesting comparison, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't make me kind of, shift my seat back over to the line of take a quarterback at number one overall. When I hear people like Greg Cosell and Emory Hunt shower praise on these guys and say, don't listen to, all the hesitancy. This can be your franchise quarterback, and just the idea, the risk that would be skipping out on Cam Ward and then watching him flourish somewhere. That's not why you take a player, but man, that'd be a tough pill to swallow.
It would hurt. It would.
When you're that team with the number one pick and you have the level of quarterback play that you've had over the last couple of years, and it's right there in your lap.
Yeah, it would be a very visceral impact. Yeah,
you'd feel like the Bears. You would feel like the Bears did.
Feel like the Bears
taking Mitch Trubisky with Pat Mahomes and Deshaun Watson on the board. So, and again, this is all in hindsight.
Bears fans how they feel on a daily basis about the quarterback. I mean, you talk about a fan base that's tortured at that specific position. Nobody worse than the Bears.
So it's all in hindsight, but very, very interesting comparisons.
And by the way, that doesn't mean and I think people need to take this, understand that doesn't mean because Greg and Emory are fans of the tape, that means that these guys are foolproof. These things can be impacted by where they land and what's around them. And you heard Greg kind of saying, it's Shedeur specifically. He has the ability to be an NFL starting quarterback, but his situation is going to be more dependent than, say, a C.J. Stroud, who is in a similar mold, but that doesn't mean that Shedeur Sanders is C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud has the higher level traits that give him an advantage over a Shedeur Sanders, even if they are within the same mold of player. There's nothing to guarantee that any of these guys succeed because any number of variables could impact them, but right now as you forecast what they are as NFL players, these are some of the indicators that you have to work with, and that's what Greg is pointing out. I just want to make sure that I clarify that specifically because I saw somebody bring up, for example, didn't Greg think highly of Will Levis? And I do remember having that conversation with Greg coming out of Levis's first year at Kentucky. Was that 2021 where he had the most success that he had as a collegiate player, where he was as healthy as he ever was as a collegiate player. And Greg said, if these things continue on the same track in 2022, then this player, based on the traits, has the potential to be the number one overall pick. And then they very much didn't. And things spiraled at Kentucky in year two, and Levis fell out of the first round. And there was some reason to believe after his rookie year that he might have something to build upon. And then the inverse happened because the situation around Levis, and Levis has his own role to play, of course, as we've diagnosed and dissected a million times over, that it didn't pan out that way. Like I said, these things are not foolproof, but you have the tape to look at, and it's educated guessing at the end of the day. Coming up next, we will get into the other quarterback situations around the league that impact the Titans. All the general managers and coaches have spoken at this point, and there's a lot fewer dominoes, it seems, out there that might have to fall or that could be capable of falling to give the Titans more options at quarterback than not. We'll get into that coming up next, the final hour here from Indianapolis. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone studios. I'm Lucas Panzica. Medical news this morning as the combine continues. The news around a potential number 1 overall pick, edge rusher Abdul Carter out of Penn State. Multiple reports stating Carter has a stress reaction in his right foot, and he was facing the possibility of surgery after the testing on Wednesday. But doctors reportedly have advised Carter against surgery. He is expected to work out at Penn State's Pro Day March 28th, according to Adam Schefter. He will not be on the field today as workouts begin at Lucas Oil Stadium with defensive linemen and outside linebackers. Another potential number 1 overall pick met with the media earlier today in Travis Hunter, news has come out that Hunter will not be working out with wide receivers or defensive backs at Lucas Oil Stadium. He will also wait until his respective pro day. The Nashville Predators homestand continues tonight, hosting the Winnipeg Jets, 7 p.m. puck drop at Bridgestone Arena. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Final hour on this Thursday here at the Indiana Convention Center. We're here because it's the NFL Scouting Combine, as we always are. Our coverage made possible by the wonderful people at Wholesale Supply. And speaking of wonderful people, we got to balance me out. We've got to bring a little yin to the yang. We got Jimmy White of TennesseeTitans.com, who I've roped into making sure the audience doesn't get entirely too tired of me yammering on and on and on about their favorite football
I can't see
team.
that happening.
Jimmy, I know you're on Twitter. Smart ass. TennesseeTitans.com is where you go. It's been an interesting week, Jimmy. They are the belle of the ball this week. They got the number 1 overall pick until further notice, and I've been interested to get to know more about Mike Borgonzi. I'm sure you've gotten a better, you've had more opportunities to converse with him than I have at this point, but there's just a lot of interesting things, developments throughout the course of this week, obviously, be it Abdul Carter and the foot situation that Schefter's reporting on with the number 1 overall pick, the lack of clarity or maybe consensus around the quarterbacks this year specifically, and then the Travis Hunter factor, who we both were over there for his media scrum today, on what position are you going to play? And he's saying he's going to play 100% of the snaps at both positions, both wide receiver and corner. What's been the most interesting part of this to you?
Yeah, I think, and tomorrow is the biggest day of all when we get to talk to Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward. Unfortunately, but they're both going on at the same time, so that's going to make it interesting. I think most interesting part to me was probably the Borgonzi-Callahan day when you got so many nuggets of information about the team, whether it's prospects in this draft or what they potentially would consider doing at 1 to what they could consider with their own free agents. I think in time we'll learn more about these prospects. I have to say I liked Travis Hunter's attitude today and his kind of no-nonsense approach and shutting down anytime somebody asks him, hey, did you talk to the Raiders? Have you talked to the Patriots?
That made me so happy.
And next question. And he shut down the question about kind of setting a precedent for getting paid as a two-way player, too. I mean, he was all about football, and I like that. And I think Abdul Carter was the same way. That news, last night about the foot, certainly a little bit alarming, no question, especially if you're the Titans, the team picking first, and you're trying to get value, and you're wondering if you can move back and still get a guy like that at 3, and then you have concerns about him because of the injury, and we all know about the past with picking injured players. So this is the week when a lot of this stuff percolates and comes about, and you almost got to kind of keep your head on the swivel, even if you're at Starbucks, it sounds like.
Why are we high school children as an industry? Why? You are one of these high-level newsbreakers. I know that
used to be.
Well, Jimmy, you're still ahead of the curve. Jimmy, on any of our best days, we would still not hold a candle to the great one, Jim Wyatt.
Well, I appreciate that.
You don't got to appreciate it. It's the truth.
Yeah,
brother.
well, I used to be, and I'm not working for the team now. It's not the same. Obviously, I kind of can release news whenever the team says it's okay to release it. It's different when you're trying to do stakeouts or call agents or trying to use sources and trying to beat the crowd. I obviously not doing that anymore, and we're getting ready to hit a time in free agency, which is probably the most frustrating part of the year for me, because you're going to have news break in free agency, and a lot of times the team has to wait until a player comes in, takes a physical, signs a contract. That could be a week late. So I'm way out of the game in March, but do the best I can, certainly at events like this, to cover as much as I can, write as much as I can, bring people as much information about the Titans as I can. But as far as breaking news, that was a fun time, but also that's a time you get a lot of ulcers and not a lot of sleep.
Not good for your health.
And not good for the family probably too. So that was an interesting time in my life.
Well, maybe we just take Stephanie to another Jelly Roll concert. We'll have a big time.
That was a big time. I got to see Jelly Roll and Snoop.
I made me so happy. Jim Wyatt at the Jelly Roll concert with us yelling, Snoop! I was so happy. But to your point about getting a lot of questions answered by Borgonzi and by Callahan, we did podium, we did sidebar, they did interviews, and you've documented all of these things, which the audience, of course, can check out at TennesseeTitans.com. The Titans radio contingent, it seems, has departed for the rest of the week. They did a lot of good interviews this week as well. Questions that you are still looking to have answered as we work our way through the remainder of the week, because today the workouts start.
Yeah, and I think it's still the big question is at quarterback, and that's not going to be answered this week. It's going to be answered over the course of the next couple of weeks because, we already know Shedeur Sanders not going to throw here. As Cam Ward said whether he's doing it or not. So even if he does or doesn't, I think that doesn't solve everything for you. They got to get to know these guys.
He's got 2 more days to figure it out, though. I feel like teams are kind of like, all right, but let's get it going here.
Yeah, but so the big questions that's going to surround this team until we have some answers is what's going to happen at quarterback, because free agency is getting ready to start here in a couple of weeks from now. Between now and then, I think if you're the Titans, you're trying to get in front of some of these players, not only just here at meetings, but in other ways, whether it's workouts or 30 visits, because you got to be informed on these quarterbacks before you can start making a decision on what to do at other spots. We've heard Mike Borgonzi and Brian Callahan both talk about Will Levis, how he's going to be in the mix. Ask them both about Mason Rudolph as well. I'll probably write something on that here in the next hour or so, talking about him and whether he fits into what they do. And reality is they don't know, because they don't know how some of this is going to shake out. So that's the biggest unanswered question for me. Harold Landry, that was interesting news that came about yesterday, because that wasn't Borgonzi or Callahan were not asked about him, and then I guess it was yesterday morning when Schefter reported that they'd given them the opportunity to explore trade options. So do you get interest there? I'm a little bit skeptical because of that contract.
Agree.
So we don't know how that's going to play out. A lot of people thought when they saw that, that means they're picking Abdul Carter for sure. That's not the case. They need an edge rusher, whether or not Harold Landry was potentially on the block or not. So that's big. And then another thing that's swirling is just what kind of interest are you going to get with that first pick, and what could you get? And those will be answered in time.
To your point about the Harold thing, I think fans made that correlation because it was 10 minutes before he took the podium, and we're all hovering around, and maybe those things are coincidence. Sometimes they have a little more to do with something than another. For example, I think the Khalil Shakur contract broke right before Brandon Beane, I think, is the I think that's the general manager of the Bills' names. Either way, he was right up at the podium right after the contract got done, and so timely that way. But yeah, on Harold, I don't love the idea of buying up a pick like they did with DeAndre Hopkins, like eating contract to get somebody more enticed on Harold Landry, because it's not like Harold's long in the tooth. He's 28.
Yep.
I know he's the longest tenured player on the team, Jimmy, and you know that. You've covered him the entire time that he's been here. But at the end of the day, like this pass rush, this front needed significant adjustment, because the job that the team last year, not just on offense is the thing that's most visceral, I think, for the Will Levis experience. And how all that played out. But they also were not impacting the quarterback enough. And Harold, I know Harold had 9 sacks, but you look at the pressures, the individual pressures, and he's not getting it done there. So I would have expected them to be active in free agency with the front. I would have expected them to be active in the draft with the front, regardless if Harold was on the roster or not. And there's nothing to say that Harold might not take a pay cut or something like that. These things, play themselves out. But that, to me, that was at least somewhat of a signal that, like, they're okay with life without Harold Landry to an extent. Not speaking for them, obviously.
Yeah, sure seems like. Although he's working. I mean, I know he's been in the building and is working toward next season. I think he knows he needs to be better no matter where he is next year. Feel like he certainly doesn't want to leave. He's got a house in Mount Juliet on the lake and loves Nashville and kind of the vibe and the low-key vibe that he lives with his family kind of out on the lake. But, NFL and life comes at you fast there. You have to adjust. And when you have a new regime coming in, I think everything's on the table, and this is certainly something they're exploring.
So say an insider stepped to you at a Starbucks. How many of them could you take?
Well, it depends.
How many of these asses could you kick, Jim Wyatt?
Yeah.
I think he could take every one of them. Not a single one of these people can hold a candle or a pencil, mechanical or otherwise.
I have some weapons. I got a couple of pencils I could use.
You think it's a pencil? It's a throwing star.
Yes.
You got no shot, Schultz.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely have to be on my toes, but
Jimmy's scared I'm actually going to rope him into a confrontation. We got to get him out of here so he can go right. Jimmy, thanks for stopping by.
Okay,
buddy.
thank you, Buck. Appreciate it.
All right, we will continue to discuss things happening here at the Combine. The testing is underway or will be underway in just 2 hours from now. Abdul Carter, of course, is not going to work out. Is he still worthy of the number 1 overall pick given the recent developments specific to his foot injury? We'll talk about that coming up next.
Hey, Lucas Panzica here. It is 12:13 in the afternoon. That means lunchtime for me. That will be in 45 minutes. For you, that might be right now, and you might be about to head out to your car to figure out where you want to go today. The answer is Hattie B's Hot Chicken, and you can find one anywhere across Middle Tennessee, whether it's in Franklin, at the factory, Lower Broadway, Melrose, Midtown, Nashville West, even the Nashville Airport. When you're flying in and out of Music City, Hattie B's is a family-run restaurant that serves up your favorite Southern food and, of course, authentic Nashville hot chicken. You know it's the best in town. They hand-bread their fried chicken, cooked to order, add your spice level. Hot or not, whatever works for you with your favorite piece of chicken, tender, sandwich wings, or the half-bird, and pick your favorite side. They have got the best around. The Southern greens, the pimento mac and cheese, the fries, the fried pickles with the drinking buddy beer cheese. You can't go wrong. If you want to skip the line, be sure to download the Hattie B's app. You get a free dessert just by doing so. Banana pudding, peach cobbler, whatever you want. Order for pickup through the app and skip the line, walk in, get your Hattie B's famous hot chicken, and head back to the office or order for delivery and make Hattie B's hot chicken your lunch spot today.
Welcome back here at the Indiana Convention Center on 104.5 The Zone. We're happy to have you. Jael asked, Buck, have you found out who's in the suite next to the Titans at the Combine? Mike Borgonzi didn't even know that yesterday. Was that yesterday when we had the GM on? I don't know.
It was Tuesday, and that was at the beginning of the week. So, again, I told you, if you come back from Indy without having figured that out, your time there will have been a failure. So, all right. Clock's ticking. You leave tomorrow.
I will make tomorrow late. I'm not in any rush. I will make some calls after the radio show concludes today. Lucas, I was so excited to go watch my basketball team last night. It's just all that's been on my mind other than quarterbacks and wide receivers / corners and pass rushers with foot stress reactions, not fractures. I got to make sure I'm specific about that. You are also being accused of being distracted. Is there food in the studio?
No, there is no food in the studio.
There's a lot of food here. In fact, you just missed the annual whatever. So did Kirby. I assume he was smoking a cigarette somewhere. They were bringing around some kind of delightful little tasty treat, but I was in the middle of talking, so I did not take one here at Indy.
Shrimp cocktail from St. Elmo's.
No, I didn't. It wasn't shrimp cocktail. It was some kind of packaged confection. It was like a sweet treat.
Maybe tomorrow's the same. They do it every year.
We're
going. We'll
I know. I'm familiar with the smell.
The Zone TV audience got to see you munch down some chips during the last break.
Okay, we need to stop doing that. I'm going. Kirby is upset. No, because Kirby, he's doing it on purpose because I don't like eating in public. That's why he's doing it.
Young man.
Oh, no.
That's all I'm going to say.
I'm going to be scolded.
See what you did? I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I don't care if you're disappointed.
Not me, you idiot. Kirby.
It's on you if you choose to eat with a camera in sight.
Okay,
you will be subject to Jackson putting you on the stream.
When else am I going to get? You have done one of these. I know that it's only the one, but what a whirlwind it is. I have had 2 real meals in the last 3 days. All right, if I got to shove some chips in my face in the middle of the radio show commercial, then I'm going to do it. Damn it! But either way, Abdul Carter. That's the news of the day. Now there's since been an update after last night's news, specific to the stress reaction that was discovered in the Penn State pass rusher's foot. And now that is something that is going to be discussed at great length, whether or not he is worthy of the number 1 overall pick. And the question is this something that would keep him from being, one, ready? He has since tweeted, Lucas, 2 hours ago. I don't know if you've seen this tweet, and we'll get to that Field Yates audio here in just a moment because apparently he has expressed a level of is it fair to call it dismissiveness? I haven't heard the audio yet, but kind of dismissive about the idea that this might detract from Abdul Carter long term?
Yeah, Field Yates seems to think this should have no impact on whether or not he gets taken at number 1.
Okay, so this is what Abdul Carter tweets at the very least. You can't stop greatness. Y'all thought I was going that easy? This is just going to make the movie more interesting. See y'all on March 28th. I assume that's the pro day. Bring your popcorn, number 1 overall pick with an infinity symbol, 56 days. Inshallah, I didn't know he was Muslim. He says it's already written. Okay, very good. So, with Abdul Carter, the stress reaction is something that could be surgically corrected if that's the route that he chose to go. Now, Adam Schefter has since reported that is not necessarily advisable and that they will take that into consideration, he and his representation, his team around him, as he continues to evaluate and try to make sure that he's rested and recovered and ready to perform because, of course, he was not planning on performing anyway here in Indianapolis, specific to the drills, given that he's continuing to recover from the shoulder injury that he sustained and played through in the college football playoff, and as we noted, played very, very well, despite being essentially having one arm tied behind, or one shoulder tied behind his back throughout the course of this. Field Yates of ESPN, one of their excellent draft analysts, spoke about the situation. What was the platform that he was on this morning, Lucas?
It was on ESPN with Greeny.
Okay, so on Get Up this morning on ESPN, here's Field Yates talking about Abdul Carter's circumstance.
Let's start with this. There was some news yesterday that made this a more interesting question to me, Field. Who is going to be the number 1 pick in the draft?
Yeah, I'm going to stick with Abdul Carter from Penn State, Greeny. And the news from Adam Schefter last night was followed up by his own reporting that, amongst the options for Abdul Carter is surgery that will require an 8-week recovery. 8 weeks from today, the NFL draft begins. I'm not worried about Abdul Carter's health on April 24th. I'm worried about his health for about September 5th or 6th. And with all indications that even if he has this surgery, he'll be good to go, the Titans address a major need and add the best pass rusher in the class.
Oh, so I guess he was on there doing a mock draft situation, sounds like?
No, it was just it was an isolated question about Abdul Carter. Yeah, but he did add at the end there that he believes it will be the Titans selecting him at number 1 overall.
Okay, so you've heard from Greg Cosell on it. The number 1 overall prospect in Greg's mind is Cam Ward. I think Daniel Jeremiah is somebody who believes that that's Abdul Carter. Field Yates has obviously expressed that as well. By the way, as we sit here, about 30 minutes ago the news broke, and I must have missed that. The NFL and NFLPA have agreed to a 2025 salary cap of $279.2 million per club, per sources, another record high. So now you have a set cap for us to do our armchair GMing with on Over the Cap and Spot Track as we like. 279.2, yet another record high for the league, because the money continues to pour in and there's no end in sight. So now we can continue to figure out those matriculations. That obviously has a great deal of impact on contract negotiations. I'm sure Matt Stafford is paying attention to that. I'm sure Sam Darnold is paying attention to that. What would you I had an interesting hypothetical. We were talking earlier to start the show. So I guess before we move on from this, we should answer the question. Abdul Carter, Lucas, I know you and I are more in the camp of quarterback than we are of anything else with the number 1 overall pick. Maybe you're more on the trade side of things, or trade outside of things.
When did you switch over to the camp of quarterback? You have been steadfast on trading back for more draft capital.
Literally from day one, the first time we talked about this, we said if they were going to pick at 1, we said quarterback.
Yes, that was the initial reaction. But in almost every conversation we've had since then, you have been in the camp of trading back from the number 1 pick.
Oh, no, I still am. But if they're going to stay there and pick, is what I'm saying, then it's a quarterback.
Oh, if they were to stick and pick at number 1.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay. No, I agree with that.
I would still, they're such a bad roster. They just need more players, that is first and foremost the thing. But I am willing to accept the quarterback if that's where they're going to pick, because they need one. So you've distracted me. Okay, Abdul Carter, worthy of number 1 overall with this new development or not?
I mean, to hear people smarter than us like Field Yates talk about it, he says yes. Again, this is not like this. This came down last night, and you sent this into our Twitter group that where we send in all any breaking news audio that we see on social media. And often multiple times,
sometimes 4 times in a row.
You sent it in and you commented on it saying disaster, which would have been a fine, I think, reaction from the news that broke last night. That he could very well have to have surgery and be back in a couple months, which would not let him work out at his pro day in 1 month at Penn State.
And that was the news last night, to your point.
That was last night. Late last night. Late this morning, it was different. It was that he's been advised to not have surgery and that he does plan to work out at his March 28th pro day. It raises fair questions, but it's not this disaster. I mean, disaster is Jeffrey Simmons, right? Tearing his ACL in February and going from a potential top 5, top 10 pick to barely being in the top 20. Worked out pretty good for Jeff and the Titans, but you get what I'm saying. Not a disaster for Abdul Carter. I don't think you should eliminate him from that discussion, but it gives you pause. Right? It gives Titans fans pause. We talked about it to open the show, and the F&M Bank chat is littered with Titans fans saying, please no, let's not go draft another player with injury questions at number 1 overall.
Yeah, but it's not an injury question. It's an injury question that was out there, and then the question has since been answered, if I'm not mistaken, based on the reporting.
Well, sure, but that is still a question of how will that affect him later in his career. It's not a stress fracture. He doesn't have a broken foot.
Stress reaction.
Right. But, is that something he can aggravate down the road? Medical questions that we are not equipped to answer.
No, I think my
it scares people away is what I'm saying. It scares the general public away.
Oh, sure. My initial reaction, because I saw he may need a bolt in his foot if he gets the surgery, was disaster. That's, because I saw Derek go through that, and I know it wasn't easy, and I know Derek ultimately ended up rebounding, but that's enough reason to give you pause or think. And I meant it more in terms of disaster for him, because anything that impacts your money at this point in time, it has disastrous implications. Like I think Will Levis falling out of the first round was not financial disaster necessarily. God knows he's tried to make up for it with every possible endorsement opportunity that comes his way. By the way, I don't fault him for that at all, for exactly that reason. But that's a disaster for the kid. Like to have that come out as he's, not moments, but hours after he got up to the podium and said, "Yeah, I'm the best player in the country. I deserve to be the number 1 overall pick." That's how this thing goes. And then to have that development, that's that can be pretty crushing. And I'm glad to see that he's staying positive on social media, and it sounds like he is in a good position to be able to overcome that. So we'll see what happens with Abdul Carter, and we'll see if that's the direction that the Titans end up going. The quarterback dominoes are something that we pay attention to, obviously, quite closely, because they do have a need, both, one could argue, in the draft and in free agency, to add a quarterback. The quarterback situations around the league have continued to develop. Right now, Matt Stafford is still under contract with the Los Angeles Rams. There's no real reason to think that there's any end in sight to that, though Danny Heifetz of The Ringer, who is a Giants fan, has been paying very close attention to that, will join us tomorrow, as will Trevor Sickerman. We'll talk to Trev about what he's hearing around the league at this point in time, specific to Matt Stafford. Stafford right now is under contract with the Rams. It's just kind of this weird stalemate. I had an interesting hypothetical posed to me about that, Lucas, because obviously that would impact the Titans. If Stafford's on the move, if Darnold then becomes more viable. Say Sam Darnold is signed. This is a text I got while we were having that conversation earlier in the show. What if the Rams traded, or I'm not sure which of these would need to happen first. I guess it would need to be Darnold signing first. But what if the Rams signed Darnold and moved Stafford? That would have a significant impact across the league-wide quarterback search. Derek Carr, currently expected to be the starting quarterback of the Saints. Kirk Cousins, currently expected to be the backup quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. Neither team expressing an interest in moving on from either of those quarterbacks because there's a lot of quarterback situations in flux. This free agency, we scoffed, both of us, at the Seth Walder piece on ESPN.com projecting 32 starting quarterbacks, or I can't remember the exact nature of the piece, but it
was projecting the starting quarterback for all 32 teams on day one of the 2025 season.
And Seth Walder of ESPN, their advanced analytics, one of their advanced analytics analysts, but you get my point. He had Jacoby Brissett being the Titans' starting quarterback, and we scoffed at the idea of that.
With the sort of the added blurb that he saying the Titans would still address the quarterback position at the bottom of the first or in the second, which,
Jackson Dart
would likely mean trade back up into the first, I guess, to get a quarterback, which doesn't seem, I don't even know what scenario.
No, what he's saying is they would trade back, and they might select a quarterback later in the first round if they got sufficient draft capital to select a quarterback later in the first round. Is the way that I perceive that.
I guess we've been operating this entire time as though none of these quarterbacks will be taken in the first round that aren't named Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders, but it would be, I think, a little bit ignorant to just act like that's definitive, right? Again,
based off last year, nothing is definitive.
Nothing.
Nothing external is definitive.
Yeah, any one of these guys could sneak up into the first. The teams could fall in love with Jackson Dart or Will or whoever. But yes, that was his projection. Was Jacoby Brissett?
What if that's the best option? Is my point.
Right.
Like that,
well,
there's a very real scenario in which that is the
Yeah.
best available option on the free agent market based on some of the moves that we're talking about, because either Stafford is a Ram or Stafford's not. If in my hypothetical, where the hypothetical that was posed to me, if Sam Darnold gets signed by the Rams and that then gives them the freedom to move on from Matt Stafford, and Matt Stafford becomes the Giants quarterback because
the Vikings.
That's something that could also happen. A short-term deal with
Kevin
Kevin
reunion,
O'Connell, who was on the Rams staff, as you mentioned. Las Vegas, apparently, we haven't gotten to the source off yet. We'll get to that at the end of the show. About the Matt Stafford, Tom Brady stuff, but Tom Brady and the Raiders at least expressing some level of interest, whether it was intentional or accidental, as is being put out there by two different people. The Raiders are clearly interested in the services of Matt Stafford because they don't have a clear answer at quarterback. All that to say, Tennessee could be left with the free agent options as currently constituted which is Sam Darnold and a bunch of Jake Briskets out there. That's just what it is this year in free agency. What did Daniel Jeremiah call it on Twitter? The used car lot is not that appealing this year in free agency.
I mean, you could very well get into that spot where you're talking about maybe not Jacoby Brissett, but Mac Jones as your best option. One guy we have not mentioned at all in this discussion is Daniel Jones as a potential reclamation project for somebody in the NFL.
What's the gap between broken Daniel Jones? Because I do believe some of the problems that he has are not fixable. I think New York has kind of wrecked him.
Yeah, well, that's again was the opinion on Sam Darnold. So and
that was true until I think how many stops did he have to have? He went to Carolina.
Multiple. Yeah, Carolina. I mean, San Francisco. In between, he spent the 2023 season in San Francisco. So it took him.
So it doesn't necessarily have to be the next stop.
Yes, and it took him a good situation, obviously, to get that reclamation project up and running. So, it's hard to imagine Daniel Jones just finding new life with the Titans, with all the work the Titans have to do on the offensive side of the ball. But he's not a name we've even brought up. But that's the group that you get into when Darnold and Carr, who the Saints say they want to keep, are suddenly off the board. Does that play into your decision at the top of the draft at all? Like, should it?
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously have to like these quarterbacks.
The answer is yes.
I think you should help inform your decision. Mike Borgonzi spoke about that, having a veteran quarterback and a drafted quarterback, that those things aren't mutually exclusive.
I don't think that will depend. I don't think those will go hand in hand. We could sign a quarterback in free agency and also draft a quarterback as well. Depends on the situation. The places I've been, we've always had older quarterbacks kind of mentor the younger quarterback. It's almost like another coach in the room for them, just to kind of show them how to be a pro, teach them all the little things about protection and just how to study opponents. So that would probably be a priority for us if we did end up drafting a quarterback.
It sounds like they want to do both, but
they have to.
And he says Will Levis will get a chance to compete, but when you have the GM saying, we probably need a veteran and a drafted guy.
Jackson, address that.
I'm sorry, Zach was talking to me. What's up?
Oh, for God's sakes.
Address what?
The answer is it's a lie.
Oh.
That's the only lie.
Well, Will Levis. No, I mean, it's not a lie. Will Levis will get a chance to compete and play and practice.
Fine. That's fine.
And if
compete
that results,
his way on out of the building.
Sure.
That's a lie.
I mean, let's hear Mike Borgonzi talk about Will Levis.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I mean, I've been there before. I mean, it's arguably the most important position in sports, quarterback position. So you have to get that right. We have to solidify that position. And we have Will on the roster right now, and he's going to compete with whoever we bring in. We have one quarterback on the roster, so we're bringing people in. And Will compete with them as well.
So there's people that think you should draft a quarterback number one overall no matter what. Clearly, Greg is kind of that mindset. He loves Cam Ward, Greg Cosell.
Well, not no matter what, but he likes Cam Ward.
Right, but there are people that believe no matter what, you have got to take a swing on a franchise guy at number one overall when you have the opportunity. But, absolutely, the developments in free agency, how other NFL QB situations could inform that decision where, okay, listen, this is the best route here. I mean, this is our best shot to get a guy to build around.
Zach Wilson, future Titans starting quarterback, huh?
I saw Jason in the F&M Bank chat say, if we're doing a reclamation project, just get Zach Wilson after a year under Sean Payton.
I mean, that's not the next stop. That's the stop after the stop, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of you don't want to be the immediate follow up to the disastrous flame out at quarterback. If you're an NFL team, you want to be the place that gives them the opportunity to work out the kinks, and then you can start to fine tune some stuff there.
My biggest thing for the Titans is get a franchise changing, a foundational player, a blue chip. We don't have to use generational. Get a blue chip player in this draft, right? And how far back can you go while still having that possibility? Exactly. And the Giants, all this scuttlebutt about the Giants pushing for Stafford could very well eliminate that option for you. They ain't trading up to one in all likelihood if it's not to go get a franchise quarterback. So that stuff can all inform what you do with the number one pick.
Nicholas Johnson on YouTube says it's Cam or Shador at number one, plain and simple. No, it's Cam or Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter at number one, and then Shador is clearly second in that conversation. It's not as simple as you've just made it. It's the one or It's the one there's a significant gulf between. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. We'd be happy to have you. Last call for phone calls for us here on the second to last day of our Live from the Combine coverage presented by Wholesale Supply. Source Off next. Men's Clinic is here to help you if you're somebody who's struggling with performance, because it happens to a lot of guys. As you age, as your body starts to change, things, happen, and you want to make sure that your performance is up to snuff. And if you started taking pills, but the pills stopped working after a fashion, the Tennessee Men's Clinic can help you with all number of protocols and options available to you that are specific to your body and your needs, because you don't want to trust your health to an online pharmacy, and you don't want to feel like you're out of options. The Tennessee Men's Clinic wants you to understand all the options that you have available to you when it comes to ED treatment. The Tennessee Men's Clinic protocols, like I mentioned, are patient-centered and customized to your needs. They have treatments for everything from low testosterone, ED treatments that increase size, stamina, everything else in between. The bottom line is no one has more expertise and experience in successfully treating men's sexual health issues than the Tennessee Men's Clinic, and they're passionate about what they do. So schedule an appointment online today at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for their Franklin or Midtown location, or call them 615-208-9090.
I've had enough of you, Man-Tooth. This is gonna end right here, right now. Let's dance.
You wanna dance, Ronnie? I want a polka. Come get a taste. Rick, where'd you get a hand grenade?
I don't know.
All right. Let's do this.
That's right. That's the scene from Anchorman, the media fight, which apparently, you take it from Anchorman, you move it to the Starbucks outside the JW Hotel, you got the Indianapolis Scouting Combine, because apparently we had a source-off that got a little contested yesterday. Jackson, that's as proud of you as I've ever been in my life. Well
I appreciate it, buddy.
we will never reach that moment again, by the way, just so you know. You've peaked.
It has peaked.
I'm cool with that. Can we get Kirby's boots on the ground reporting from that Starbucks tomorrow?
We're just going to have him doing live hits from the Starbucks at the JW?
Yes.
Yeah. We're going to go down there this afternoon and start a damn fight. We'll have something to talk about tomorrow.
See, that's the problem. He won't cover it. He will engage.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'll have my phone on. I'll be recording.
He will instigate. Yes, I know, but you'll be in the mix.
You watch me bounce off the wall, off the floor, bounce the table off a dude.
Yeah. That's
it'll be taped to his chest like a body cam. Yeah.
The best part of that clip is, Brick, where did you get a grenade?
There needs to be a historical marker at the Starbucks where Jordan Schultz allegedly confronted Ian Rappaport over this source-off regarding a meeting or impromptu, unexpected rendezvous, depending on who you ask, between Brady and Stafford in Montana.
And in Schultz's defense, Rappaport was on his home turf.
That's true.
His dad, the former CEO of Starbucks, this was home field advantage for Jordan Schultz.
Yeah, did it in Daddy's coffee shop.
Daddy's coffee shop. Don't be
the local family-owned coffee shop. Rappaport just came storming in there.
Yeah. Just a small, quaint coffee shop where very few people go. You know, it's a nice place, a quiet place. A mom and pop type of
a hidden gem, some might say.
Yes, correct.
All right, so a lot of people might have no clue what we're talking about.
Yeah, give them some context. Because really, I don't even have all the full details.
Right.
This happened. I got that tweet while I was watching Indiana beat Penn State's ass last night.
We're going chronologically. So Jordan Schultz of Fox Sports tweeted at 1:28 p.m. Central yesterday. Sources: Raiders minority owner Tom Brady recently hosted Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford at his home in Montana, where they spent time together and went skiing. Brady has been actively trying to convince Stafford to join the Raiders, and discussions are ongoing. Several teams are interested in Stafford if the Rams decide to move him, with Las Vegas believed to be the most aggressive suitor. So Schultz reporting that Brady invited Stafford to the ski resort in Montana to go over this. And then Ian Rappaport takes to Twitter not 30 minutes later and reports Raiders minority owner Tom Brady and Rams quarterback Matthew Stafford ran into each other at a ski resort in Montana, sources say. The meeting, unplanned, was not extensive or in-depth and did not include Brady, quote, hosting or, quote, recruiting Stafford, despite reports saying otherwise. Reports, I think we should take the S off, make it, that is not plural, that is singular.
You're talking to me?
From Jordan Schultz. Yes, exactly. And then Jordan Schultz allegedly verbally accosted Ian Rappaport at the Starbucks in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Stepping to him, apparently, this is from Pro Football Talk, who
said
had
we got to talk.
That's right. He said,
we got to talk.
I love the reporting from Pro Football Talk that Schultz approached Rappaport. Rap Sheet was talking to an agent, and Schultz went up to him and said, quote, we need to talk. And in parentheses, he says, or specific words to that effect. And Rappaport said, we don't need to talk. And Schultz then made accusations about Rappaport. Rappaport allegedly regarded those accusations as unfounded. The two men were face to face. And Jordan Schultz said, if you have anything to say to me, say it to my bleeping face. If this continues,
say it to anybody, say it to somebody.
If this continues, we're going to have a bleeping problem. And
then apparently Rap called NFL security.
The incident was reported to NFL security.
What's NFL security going to do?
The definition of a tattletale.
I almost just said such a bad word on FCC Safe Radio.
I mean, who comes out looking worse here? They both
rap.
I mean,
no, it's the person calling NFL security to bring
sure.
a verbal confrontation.
I love the connection of Jordan Schultz being the son of the former CEO of Starbucks and it happening in a Starbucks. And yeah, I mean, what's more believable, right? That they, by happenstance.
Oh no, Schultz is right.
Bumped into each other. Like, come on.
Like, here's what, and you know, I have obviously not spoken to the people that the two of them have spoken to, but it is not a difficult conclusion or assumption to make to say that Tom Brady, who is a minority owner of an NFL team, should not be recruiting anybody to anywhere because that's tampering. And Tom Brady has most recently been involved in the last tampering scandal with the Miami Dolphins and Sean Payton and Stephen Ross that cost the Miami Dolphins a first-round draft pick. So somebody is reporting the news and somebody is protecting people in the news.
I love that you have to clarify, by the way, that you have not spoken to the people that Rappaport and Schultz have spoken to regarding Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford.
I just thought I should make that clear for the audience.
Don't worry about it. I think we assumed that.
Jordan, you don't know. I could be picking fights at Starbucks. Maybe that's where I'm going to go hang out now. I'm just going to hide under the table there.
Also added to his tweet after Rappaport came out with that, Schultz tweeted, if you really think Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford just happened to run into each other at a ski resort in Montana, of all places, at the exact same time,
that's right.
I've got a bridge to sell you. Oh, that's so funny.
I love this. I hate that it's national news because it's so stupid. It is so mind-numbingly stupid. But, you know, you got to have a little spice to the combine. All right. You ready for some polls? Wrap this up?
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Could a lack of quarterback options in free agency make you want the Titans to draft a quarterback number 1 overall? Yes, no, or I already want a quarterback at 1. 51.3% say no. 32% say yes. 16.7% voted I already wanted a quarterback at 1.
I'm kind of surprised by that. Are you?
I am very surprised by that.
Okay, interesting. I would have said yes.
Adam replies, Greg Cosell pushed me over the precipice. Draft Cam Ward.
Well, Greg's a smart guy. You should listen to him.
Is Abdul Carter still worth the number 1 pick after this week's medical news? 61% say yes, he is.
I mean, at least there's some thought to it. I would want to know if he's having the surgery or not. I think that would definitely impact the discussion. It sounds like that's less likely to happen.
He also does not have an injury history, right? Like Abdul Carter did not have availability issues throughout his college career.
Yeah, a shoulder unrelated to a foot is injury history, but it does not necessarily make you injury prone, right?
Yeah. And it hardly made him less of an impact player in the most important
Here's an
juncture of the
unholy
season.
terror in the college football playoff.
Who is the best football player in the 2025 NFL Draft? Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Cam Ward, or Shedeur Sanders? 48.5% are still saying Abdul Carter. 38% say Travis Hunter. 10.7% say Cam Ward, and only 2.8% say Shedeur.
I'm surprised by that too, I think.
I'm not too surprised. I think the discussion of
you
best
said Travis Hunter getting a better percentage
than Cam Ward.
Yeah, I just assumed that people would put the quarterback, just grade on the scale of the quarterback.
I've kind of been under the assumption that Cam Ward being above Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter is with the value of the quarterback position in mind as a football player.
Okay, I get that.
Which Vols player most needs to test well this week? Most of the audience went with James Pierce Jr., 47.7%. 25.6% said Dante Thornton. 18% Dylan Sampson. Only 8.6% voted Omar Norman Lott. Elijah Simmons also will be out there working out at the Combine, as is Brew McCoy.
The phrasing of the tweet was, who needs to have the best?
Which Vols player needs to test well? Most needs to test well.
I know you said Dylan Sampson. I think James Pierce is going day 2 at worst.
Yeah.
So to me, it's Dante Thornton because I think that's kind of the fringe of undrafted versus draftable player.
Those are the polls.
All right, very good. That's the show. One more to do here live from Indianapolis. Trevor Sikkema of Pro Football Focus, Danny Heifetz of The Ringer. They'll sit down with us. We got a lot more stuff to get to. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Prime time tonight at 7.